I am just going to send Board Member Baker the link. Oh. Mr. Bonds, are you helping somebody else?
Yep, just finished.
Okay, great. Board Member R. Baker is in as a participant and not as a panelist. Is it possible to move her over?
Yep, I'll do that right now.
Great. Otherwise, I think we have everybody here.
I think we're missing Board Member E. Baker. I just had to resend the link.
7, 8. Okay. Board Member Joshua, we'll just wait for her. And then Board Representative Foreman, were you able to connect with the alternate? Will he be joining us?
Yeah, so he's as an attendee right now, Jakai McCrae.
Mr. Bonds, can you find him? Great. Okay, great. All right, so we are just waiting for Elizabeth Baker.
Okay, so it looks like I can't elevate Mr. and Mrs. McCrae to a panelist, but I can unmute the person.
Okay. Will that work, Mr. Roth, for the swearing in?
Yes, as long as we can hear them, we're okay.
Great. Okay. Since we do have a swearing in before we take the roll call, do you think we can get started? Board Member Siders, did you send the actual link to Elizabeth? Okay.
Yeah, I did as well.
Okay. All right. I'm confident she will figure it out. But why don't we get started, and then I will keep my cell phone on for the public, so in case Elizabeth does try to contact me, we can intervene. But let's at least move forward and get started with the meeting. Okay. All right. So, Mr. Bonds, could you put us on the record?
We're on the record.
Great, thank you. So thank you all for joining us this evening for our November regular board meeting. I did want to let the public know that this meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded and stored for access after the meeting. The public can submit a public speaks using the BOE questions form on the website or by using the chat feature of the WebEx. For December, we will have a new process by which the public can live speak during public speaks. We just have to figure out the protocols and figure out how to allow for both the forums and the live speaks. That's a new regulation from the governor for these COVID times. Just 1 second, Elizabeth did text me. Mr. Bonds, Elizabeth is not being recognized as a panelist. Okay. Adequate written notice of this meeting of the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education was sent to the township and village clerks, the Star Ledger, the News Record, tapintoit, soma.net, villagegreennj.com, and is posted on the district website along with the annual calendar of meetings. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So first, I would like to make a motion that allows for distant participation in our monthly general board meeting this evening. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Joshua. All in favor? Let's wave your
Aye.
hand. Aye.
Aye from Robin.
Thank you, Board Member Baker. Mr. Roth, that was unanimous. And now, Mr. Roth, it's our great pleasure to hold the oath of office for our student and alternate representatives to the board. Mr. Roth?
Okay, good evening. The first person I would like to, call up normally, where we would stand together and read the oath, is Student Representative Lily Foreman. Student Representative Foreman, do you have the oath of office in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Okay, repeat after me, and I'm just going to read this in larger chunks than we normally would, okay?
Sounds good.
So, I state your name,
I, Lily Foreman,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state,
under the authority of the people, so help me God.
under the authority of the people, so help me God.
I state your name,
I, Lily Foreman,
do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications for the office of Member of Student Representative to the Board of Education,
do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications for the office of Member of Student Representative to the Board of Education,
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And just for the record,
All right.
and for the record, I did receive an email from you with your sworn statement, so I will have that countersigned tomorrow for you.
Thank
The
you.
next, you're welcome. The next person, let's see if I'm pronouncing this right, is Jackie Lodgson McKay. Did I pronounce that correct? Okay, do you have the oath of office in front of you?
I do.
Okay, so repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Ja'Kai Lawson McCray,
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state,
under the authority of the people, so help me God.
under the authority of the people, so help me God.
I state your name.
I, Ja'Kai Lawson McCray,
Do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications for office of member of alternate student representative to the Board of Education,
I, do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications for the office of member of alternate student representative to the Board of Education,
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Congratulations, you're now sworn in.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, and we look
And
forward
for
to
the
serving with you. Go ahead, Mr.
And
Roth.
for the record, I also received the sworn statement in email right before the meeting, so we are all set at this point.
Thank you. Lovely. And thank you, Lily, board member, student representative Foreman, for helping support that process, and to the high school administration for and the student council for working to make this election possible. Thank you. So as per our board agreement, Mr. Roth, please note that there were no BOE members who could not make the meeting, as we're all here, but there are a few who are not feeling well and may need to leave the meeting early. Mr. Roth, please take the roll.
Board member Elizabeth Baker.
Here.
Board member Robin Baker.
Present.
You said
I
present.
did- Okay, video skipped. Board member Shannon Cuttle.
Here.
Student representative Lily Foreman.
Here.
Board member Thayer Joshua.
Here.
Board member Anne Marie Manny.
Here.
Board member Anthony Mazzocchi.
Here.
Board member Erin Siders.
Here.
Board member Johanna Wright.
Present.
Board member Kamal Zubieta.
Here.
9 voting members and 1 student representative present.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Roth. I would like to approve the board meeting minutes into the record. Do I have any, Dr. Taylor, did I miss something?
Board recognition, Madam President.
Oh, okay. Board members, student board member Foreman, would you like to do the recognitions? I can't see you on my screen. There you are.
Oh, okay. Is my audio okay? Okay, sounds good. Yes, we have quite a few of them tonight. So first, we have 4 CHS students who were commended by the College Board for their excellence in academic achievement and recognized as a College Board National Recognition Program Scholar. The invitation was extended to those students who scored in the top 2.5% of PSAT/NMSQT test takers who identify as one or more of the following: African American, Hispanic American or Latinx, Indigenous, attending school in a rural area, or from a small town. The 4 students recognized from CHS are Walter Bahalo, Daniel Palumbo, and Lucas Intagliata, who received the National Hispanic Recognition Awards, as well as Ogena Oredu, who received the National African American Scholar Recognition. Congratulations to those 4 students on this academic achievement. Next, we have the CHS Columbian newspaper staff. The editorial staff of the Columbian newspaper, who won a first place award in an annual competition held by the American Scholastic Press Association for the 6th year in a row in October 2020, received a county proclamation from freeholder Tasami Cooper from the Essex County Board of Chosen Freeholders. The proclamation hereby commends Columbia High School for winning first place in the American Scholastic Press Association's annual competition and congratulates them for fostering an environment that produces exemplary results and excellent student members of society. Of the Columbian editorial staff from 2019 to 2020 include Martina Zacher, Nicholas Shires, Nori Zubieta, Jordan Young, Sydney Rednick, Zoe Slavin, Emily Wilner, Ari Melman, Rory McEwen, and Jonathan Cutler. And the art and design team members for that year were Dana Hugel, Avery Supios, Matt McBride, Ariel Loubier, Derek Gutierrez, Sydney Mannion, Isaac Weber, Jack Griffith, Leo Preston, Ethan Walden, and Charlie Hummel. And their advisors are Joshua Enyart and Sydney Malhotra. Congratulations to the staff of the newspaper. And next we have staff recognitions, starting with Dr. Jane Bean Folks, ELA supervisor, who had an article published in the Handbook of Reading Research, Literacy Research Annual Review, Volume 5 at the end of September. The article is titled Restoring Critical Literacies. In addition to Dr. Bean Folks, the article was authored by Ebony Elizabeth Thomas and James Joshua Coleman in 2020. The article, Restoring Critical Literacy itself, foregrounds the human agency underlying each literate act, as well as spotlighting the potential for returning future critical literacy practices to those best poised to harness their power. That is, young people whose use of participatory media demands that literacy instruction hold relevance for their lives as readers, as writers, and as activists living through the perils of a 21st century world. Congratulations, Dr. Bean Folks. Also, congratulations to Columbia Cougars head football coach Gary Mobley for being named New Jersey's High School Football Coach of the Week by the New York Jets on October 20th. In its 25th year, the Coach of the Week award is given to a coach in the tri-state area who serves the best interests of the games by the teaching of sound football fundamentals, the motivation of young players to achieve, and the promotion of youth football by way of dedication to their community, their school, and their student athletes. Congratulations, Coach Mobley. And last but not least, congratulations board member Shannon Cuttle on making the 100 most influential LGBT New Jerseyans Power List. The third annual list pays tribute to politically influential LGBTQ people in New Jersey politics. As quoted in the InsiderNJ.com 2020 Insider Out 100 LGBT Power List, quote, a gate-crashing history maker, Shannon Cuttle snagged the most votes, first place in an 8-way race for school board to become New Jersey's first transgender elected official. Cuttle is a rising star in the state and national Democratic Party, as evidenced by high-profile roles at this summer's DNC. Congratulations to Board Member Cuddle, and that concludes tonight's recognitions.
Thank you, Student Representative Foreman. All right, so now I would like to approve the board minutes into the record, the executive session and regular session for October 19th. Are there any corrections? Any comments? I don't see any. All right, Mr. Roth, could you please?
I saw the,
Board Member Wright?
I'm sorry, I don't think I saw the personnel minutes. I think I missed them.
So the personnel minutes would not be these minutes because we don't approve committee minutes. That will be in the report out. But I thought they all went out. Dr. Taylor?
That is correct. Board Member Wright, you're just approving now the Board of Education meeting minutes.
Right.
During the committee report outs, we'll share those minutes, and those were all pushed out with the agenda setting minutes. We were a little bit late because of the fall break, but all those have gone out to the board. If you'd like for us to push it to you again, let me know. I could push it right from my screen now.
Please, thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay, so any other comments on the minutes? All right, so Mr. Roth, could you please move them into the record? All right, so now I'd just like to read our board members, our board statement for the community. The school board meeting is a business meeting in public, not a meeting with the public. Oftentimes it may appear to members of our audience that the Board of Education takes action with very little comment and in many cases a unanimous vote. Before a matter is placed on the agenda at a public meeting, the administration has thoroughly reviewed the matter with the superintendent. If the superintendent is satisfied that the matter is ready to be presented to the Board of Ed, it is then referred to the appropriate board committee. The members of the board committee work with administration and the superintendent to assure that the members fully understand the matter. After the committee discusses the matter, it is presented to the full board for discussion before any action is taken. Only then is it placed on the agenda for action at a public meeting. So now, Dr. Taylor, we are ready for your superintendent update.
Thank you to our board president, and congratulations to our new student rep alternate, and also congratulations again to Ms. Foreman. It's a pleasure working with you, and having our one-on-one conversations is one of the highlights every month of my time in our district. I also want to, of course, congratulate our board member, Shannon Cuddle, for just being a groundbreaking leader, making news, positive news in our community and in our state very often. It's my pleasure. Before we go into the actual presentation, I just have a brief update to share with the community, just to let our community know regarding our HVAC units and our filters. Our vendor, our third-party vendor, Kalen, has been directed to inspect every classroom Univent system. They are measuring the units for new filters. They're also cleaning them and repairing the motors if needed. As they visit each unit, they were directed to ensure a standard clean filter is installed. And when the new higher rated filters arrive, they will then install each of those in each unit in our district. So far, they have visited multiple wings in Columbia High School and also Jefferson and South Mountain. Thus far, we are on pace for our January reopening. The town hall is scheduled for December the 10th, 2020. We will, of course, be advertising that very widely. And unlike the previously scheduled town hall, we're going to have Columbia High School's information as a part of a singular town hall on December the 10th. And again, we'll have more details approaching, and I'm going to now share my screen to give you our semi-annual SSDS presentation. Can I just have a thumbs up that you can see my screen? All right, fantastic. Thank you. Board members and members of the public, as you may be aware, there's a requirement that we have two SSDS, and that stands for Student Safety Data System report outs annually. They usually run about 6 months or so behind the real time of what's occurring in the school district. This report reflects the annual report of the 2019-2020 school year. You may recall that in early spring, if not late winter last year, we also presented a breakdown of the first part of that school year. And again, SSDS stands for Student Safety Data System. It has replaced the former EVVS, which was a violence and vandalism report out system. So just a little bit of background information about the SSDS system. By law, all New Jersey public schools must use this system and report out incidents of violence, vandalism, weapons, substance abuse, and HIB incidents that occur in their schools. And of course, HIB stands for harassment, intimidation, and bullying. Again, SSDS has replaced our former EVVRS, violence and vandalism reporting system. And SSDS has also replaced the harassment, intimidation, bullying investigations training program systems. So we can see that the latter two former systems were consolidated to now provide a singular reporting system, again known as the SSDS, Student Safety Data System. So we're going to look at not just last year's data, but previous years to see what type of trends we see in this very important reporting instrument. Before we do, let's just make sure that we understand the terms that we're using in the SSDS. Your total number of incidents are in 5 categories. Those categories are violence, vandalism, substances, weapons, and HIB confirmed. And again, violence includes assault, fight, kidnapping, robbery, extortion, sexual assault or contact, threat, both simple and criminal. And the vandalism area also includes arson, computer trespass, damage to property, false public alarms, as well as theft and trespassing. And again, one important caveat here is that the incident category totals may differ from the total incidents due to multiple offenses selected for one incident. For example, a student may have multiple offenses for one single incident that occurred. I hope that that's clear. So in looking at our comparison here, starting from 2009, 2010 to last year, you can see for each category on your left-hand side of your screen, and you can also see the totals for our school district for those categories. And one thing that's very important to also notice is that the HIB areas are empty for a number of years, as that was a recent addition to the data that we collected. Another very important piece to notice about our chart here, that the bottom of our chart reflects the totals of each of the academic school year. And so we want to highlight a few things. As should be expected, last year, 2019, 2020 was a year like none other, as we all know, and our school year in person was not completed in person. So it is expected that we should see a decline theoretically in this information. And if you look down our charts, you are seeing a decline that you could surmise could be a reflection of the year being shortened. However, there is a caveat there where we're seeing a dramatic increase between 2018, 2019, and 2019-2020 in the area of substance abuse. This increase, of course, begged for us to look closer and to give you an analysis of why we're seeing that increase and what we can directly connect it to. Again, capturing that there were declines really across the board in these areas. Again, as there, probably should have been, because we were in person a lot less than we normally are, stopping in March. However, there's an obvious increase here. And so again, let's analyze why we have that increase. So in looking at this increase, we have some great reasoning for this. And by great, I just mean a deep dive into the information. And doing our administrative trainings last year and looking at data, we realized that that our administrators and our anti-bullying specialists, when it came to substance abuse incidents, were only reporting quote unquote positive cases of substance abuse. That was our default in reporting. However, in our training last year, we focused on informing our anti-bullying specialists and our administrators that there are many areas when it comes to substance abuse that must be reported and fall into the substance abuse reporting area. Of course, substance possession. A student is found with one of the reportable substance types in their locker or vehicle or on their person. That is a incident that should be reported in this category. Of course, substance sale or distribution, meaning a student sells, buys, or gives one of these reportable substances to others. Again, a definite connection to this reporting area. Substance use confirmed, meaning a student is suspected of being under the influence of one of the reportable substance types, and use is confirmed by a medical examination. And one of the last pieces here that's really important is that if students are suspected and they refuse the medical exam, the assessment of their person, then that is an automatic inclusion in this area. And so again, we were not reporting utilizing all of these areas that are connected to substance abuse. And so that change, that shift to being more transparent, and that shift to being correct in how we do this work, definitely connected to the sharp rise that we saw in the reported numbers of substance abuse incidents in our SSDS. And so again, this is a chart that's showing, again, the left-hand side here is showing you each of our schools. The school year is last year, 2019-2020, and you're seeing an incident total per school, and you're also seeing the categories in each of our schools and what those totals were for incidents as reported in the SSDS system. And once again, the bottom shows you the total incidents and the total per category across our school district. As you can see, as was reported in the previous slides, our greatest concern remains substance abuse and understanding the connections of substance abuse to other needs that our students may have, whether it be mental health supports or self-medication that's happening due to anxiety. We really want to dig deeper, and the Board of Education, of course, invested further in mental health specialists for all of our secondary schools that are having a positive impact in our current school year. Again, sharing the same information, but sharing the total incidents by school, not just by type of incident. As you can see, Columbia High School has the highest number of incidents, and of course they have by far the highest number of students, and our middle schools are next in line with the total number of incidents for the last school year. If we go back, you can see that all this data, it crosses, when you do a crosswalk from the previous charts, it's just the same data presented in different ways to cut and show trends amongst our schools. So a concerted effort was made to provide more training to staff across the district last year. There were 9 district-wide trainings, which included central office staff, bus drivers, coaches, paraprofessionals, custodial staff, and district administrators. Additionally, each school was trained by the district HIB coordinator on the HIB policies and reporting requirements. Anti-bullying specialists doubled the effort by including training on staff development days. So I just want to pause there for a second. So again, we provided 9 district-wide training days for all of the folks in these categories, all of our district employees in these categories. And then each of our anti-bullying specialists, who are individuals who've been identified to support our HIB efforts in our schools, doubled down on the district-wide efforts on our own staff development days. An overall effort was made to improve and change the climate and culture of the district by including lessons in the classroom, particularly during the Week of Respect. We really focused in on ensuring that the Week of Respect was a very relevant time and a time to really connect our students to this very important topic with the use of the Hipster tool. And again, Hipster is our digital tool that we have here in district that helps us to maintain accurate records of HIBs that occur in our district for investigation, and helps us to track them, as well as help us to make our reporting out easier. And it helps us to also make sure that we are within the guidelines for the timeliness that you have to review HIB allegations. For our 2020-2021 school year, we'll have a continued focus on accurate reporting. That will be emphasized. Schools will again receive district level training on our policies and procedures, which will include administrators, teachers, and support staff. What you see on your screen now is a count of those trainings that have occurred across our schools during these report times and also for the entire school year. So what are our expectations for our current school year? So we are transitioning, as the public, I believe, is aware of. We have had an opportunity to rethink and redesign our central administration, and also that includes the leaders who are in our district. And so one of those shifts has been an assistant superintendent for access and equity. The assistant sup for access and equity will be taking over and is transitioning to be our district HIB coordinator. We definitely will be focusing in on additional training for staff and administrators on the code of conduct implementation and restorative practices, restorative justice. And also, of course, our HIB reporting and investigation and our data reporting. We have so many levers that produce information in these areas on a monthly basis. We have to make sure that they are coherent. And although Hipster can be used to track an investigation, HIB or code of conduct, such incidents need to be accurately reported also in PowerSchool. I'm sure all of our families are very aware that PowerSchool is our student information system, but it also holds much more information than just the student's name and address and ID number and even their master schedule. It can also help us to maintain and track these incidents that require intervention to make sure that our students and our families are safe and healthy. Administrators and support staff again need to ensure that the correct incidents are recorded in SSDS, such as substance abuse, in accordance with the SSDS guidance. Again, showing you how that data can really change when the training focuses in on ways that we can improve our information and again make our information as accurate as possible so that it can help us in addressing the concerns. The purpose of this work, the purpose of the SSDS and these different layers is to better serve our students and community and to use the data to drive some of the choices and changes that we make in this improvement. So where are we now? In the 2021 school year, we have staff that's already been trained, and we have staff that is still to be trained, and we're of course scheduling those trainings, from having our district calendar that we have scheduled PD days and scheduled PD half days already in those in that calendar. And these are some of the trainings that we utilize to improve what we are providing for our community, our students, and our families. One thing that we're really excited about that our schools did a fantastic job of this year is acknowledging and celebrating the Week of Respect. If you're not familiar with the Week of Respect, it's another opportunity to draw attention to improving the climate and culture of our district. The Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act requires that the week beginning with the first Monday in October of each year be designated as the Week of Respect and School Violence Awareness Week in New Jersey. This helps us to recognize the importance of social and emotional learning and character education. School districts, charter schools, and Renaissance school projects are required, again, to observe the week by providing age-appropriate instruction focused on preventing HIV. And so, although we're virtual, all of our schools reported that they participated and provided artifacts that demonstrated their participation in the Week of Respect. And some of the activities included newsletter messages and videos to our schools and families, school spirit and school color days, chalk it up to respect, kindness messages on social media, TikTok challenges, classroom activities. An example would be how do I see myself, t-shirt creations, listening to respect playlists on YouTube, teacher-led discussions on showing respect, as well as bucket filling activities. And again, here are some of the artifacts provided from our schools during the Week of Respect. And again, I won't insult you by reading to you, but just want to show these artifacts because we're very proud. There's been a lot of growth in this area in our district. So while we're, very excited by the potential of our improvements, we also have to be transparent and know that there's still areas for us to improve in this very important area. And so, we acknowledge again that we're seeing a positive trajectory in some of the trends of this important area, including the accuracy with which we are reporting the challenges that we have with substance abuse. And we're also, of course, very proud of, again, the week of respect across our schools and how it's been demonstrated. We're also going to be very transparent in reporting that we must focus this year on ensuring that all of our levers of reporting that the information is identical. To that end, we dug deeper into our previous reporting data and found that there were some gaps that will be addressed as we move forward. Corrective action steps will be included in our professional development that we just spoke about for those who are responsible in our schools, as well as a review of the granular circumstances that could cause a report to be made in one platform but not another. A perfect example, when digging into this data and speaking to some of our school personnel, for our SSDS piece, some of our clerical folks are responsible for the ultimate upload. But once we went into an all virtual setting, it was a while before some of them received, their virtual, I would say their what they need to be successful virtually, i.e., their laptops and those type of things, and that could account for some of these gaps. But we're going to dig very deep into the gaps that we're going to share with you, just to be transparent and show that when we focus on an area that needs improvement, we see improvement. What gets monitored gets done. And so, in looking at some of the information that we have here, again, your schools are on your left-hand side. The first column represents HIBs that were confirmed, entered into SDS, and the red column represents HIBs that were confirmed in our monthly reporting that we do for the board. The third column represents HIBs that were, again, alleged, that were entered into our SSDS system. And the fourth column represents the HIBs that were alleged and reported to the board. And so these numbers should be the same. And as you can see, these multiple columns, that there is variance there. This fifth column, it represents a code of conduct incidents. So not every incident is an HIB. Obviously, there are some incidents that are governed by code of conduct. And so we're sharing those as well. And then the last column just represents incidents that have not yet been completed from the 2019-2020 school year. And we do know what these incidents are, and they're part of a more complex circumstance. And so, part of us being transparent and sharing information is that knowing that some of these things are confidential because they involve student records, but we want to make sure that we're sharing the information. And so, one specific piece, you may be saying, what is a 4.5 and an 8.5? How can you have half of an incident? Well, what you should know is that for that particular incident, it reached across schools. There was an incident that had students from MMS as well as SOMS. So the 0.5 recognizes that the students who were involved were at multiple schools. So again, just sharing this information to show that we acknowledge that this is an area of growth for our district and for our school-based leaders, and for our central admin, as well as for our new assistant soup of access and equity, to look at how can we make sure that our levers in our reporting matches up without any variance, understanding that there are ways to improve that, whether it be changing the reporting dynamic and who are the designees in our schools as well. So again, we've seen improvement in some areas, and we're being transparent that we also see that there's an area for improvement, and we will be addressing that during our current school year. To Mr. Bonds, you can take control of the platform. Thank you, everyone. to our board members, we definitely can allow for questions now from the board.
Sure.
can't-
Board Member Zubiyata? Kamal, you're still muted.
Sorry, Dr. Taylor, I have two questions that are administrative. The first one is, could you please tell us how the three systems talk to each other, SDSS, Hipster, and PowerSchool? And the second question is, can you please clarify the roles of the district HIB coordinator, who I believe to be Joanne Cutler, and the assistant superintendent for access and equity, who I know is new, is Dr. Perez.
Yes, thank you for that. So the PowerSchool system, the Hipster system, and again, I want to ask Mr. Bonds to correct me if I make a mistake here. But the PowerSchool system, that all of the contact information is an abstract, is taken from the PowerSchool system. That's how they talk to one another. There was another system, the SSDS system, that is the state's system that we upload to. So each school has a designee, and that designee inputs the SSDS information during the window that it is available. So Joanne Butler, our solicitor, in the previous years was the lead HIB coordinator. Right now, she is transitioning those duties to the assistant superintendent for access and equity, Dr. Perez. They are meeting and planning and going through their transition. We hope to have that completed shortly. But as you saw from the reporting that we shared, both in this report and also in our executive session, there are some lingering pieces that are there. And even when Joanne Butler transitions totally away from HIB, she will still be a resource, because there are sometimes complexities that occur during HIB investigations that require that a little bit of feedback from a legal opinion.
And who will be conducting the actual investigations?
Great question. So each of our schools has an anti-bullying specialist, right? So that's a designee in the schools, and they are the trained designee to do all the investigations that occur at the school level. Many times they are a guidance counselor, sometimes they're assistant principal. I've seen schools do it multiple ways. It can depend on the size of the school and what the person's duties already are. But that person is the person who is connected to Hipster. They are connected to whoever makes the allegation of HIB. They do all of the investigations and the interviews with those folks, and they report out through the Hipster system to central administration. And then there's some levers that we have to pull once that happens. And there are, of course, all kind of timelines that are a part of being in compliance with this review.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Zubiyata. Board Member Mazzocchi?
Yes, thank you for the presentation, Dr. Taylor. Definitely concerning, to see a couple of years now of a trend in the substance abuse data that we're seeing. I'll wait until we have committee meetings to kind of do a deeper dive into the data. It's a little surface right now. I have a lot of questions, but my two questions, I just want to make sure my assumptions are correct. Number one, can I assume correctly that most of the data collection to this end for 2019, 2020 discontinued when we went online in March? And number two, even though, you mentioned that there's a real onus on collecting data and collecting it better, that we're going to see very incomplete data in this school year as well, that's going to end up being an anomaly?
I believe you are correct. As you can imagine, even while we're in a virtual setting, we have had HIB allegations and investigations launched. There are far fewer, as you asserted, and after March, there were far fewer as well. And I want to make sure that we mention that during the presentation, to make sure that we're being as transparent as possible, that we're not jumping around celebrating a reduction in incidents because the year was incomplete. And so we definitely acknowledge that.
So Dr. Taylor, this is the third or fourth year where the SSDS or the EVPRS data that is self-reported by the building leaders directly into the state system, and then we get this summary, does not match prior data presentations, does not match what, as you showed, which I'm grateful for reconciling the HIB data that we previously get. I cannot emphasize any stronger than to try to come up with an SSDS system that you can monitor each month with your building leaders, and let's create a system where they take responsibility for making sure that this data is accurate. We can't keep going on like this.
Yeah, I think that the answer to what we all want, and I believe this was really eloquently said by one of our board members, is that it's not our goal to have our numbers at zero, right? Because if something is happening, we want to be able to help. But it is our goal to make sure that we're being accurate, that we're representing with a great deal of accuracy. And so that's why for our goal this year, it's going to be to create systems that are without a doubt reconciled that way. Whether it be reviewing how each school is assigning the person who has the information, and also understanding that the folks who may be responsible for the HIB review, how are they connected to the SSD input person, right? Some of the answers are easier than others. And a school that maybe has 25 or more incidents or occurrences versus a school that maybe has 4, the management may be different, the size of the school may be different, et cetera. So we want to really drill down and add some more layers of accountability to this, because we think that we can address it that way, the same way that we did the other pieces that we shared, and we want to make sure that we're being just very, very clear and transparent that this is a focus of ours moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Board Member Wright?
Yeah, I was, the data I'm concerned with as well. Yeah, I am on. Can you break down the data that you have into the subsections, and can you break down the data by race?
I believe we can add, we can slice information into demographics. One thing that we have started and have posted to our website and also shared with the board in the Friday packets is a new reporting mechanism that we have as a result of our BPW settlement, where we're putting monthly the incidents that occurred via demographics. So that information is what we're doing moving forward now. I couldn't offer you this information by demographic right this second, but what I could do is note that down as an action that we can take and go back and see with our Power School system if we're able to do that and break that down into one more slide and share it for sure.
Can you put that online as well? And I wanted to ask you about the middle schools. Do we still have SAC counselors at the middle schools?
Dr. Taylor, you're on mute.
This sounds like me last time.
Let me tell you, when we're all done with 2020, the mute button will be a forever part of our lives. I know that we have our SACs at CHS, but I'm not 100% sure at the middle schools. Dr. Alegria, do you have that information? If you don't, we can do that research for the board.
Well, I hope that we have SAC counselors at the middle schools. I'm a little concerned about that, especially with the code of conduct and everything that's coming up with
We
that.
didn't reduce, so just to say, we didn't reduce any positions. So if they were there before, more than likely they are. I just like to answer from a position of certainty. So we'll double check that for you.
Board Member Joshua?
Yes, thank you. My question is just about the number of trainings. It seems to be varied between the schools. Like I see some had 6 and the school had 0. What is the minimum number of trainings required annually? I mean, and how do we ensure that every school meets that? At a minimum, we want to do more than that as long as we can, and also the district-wide trainings, who participates in that? Is that just central office or is that administrators from the buildings as well? I'm just trying to figure out if those counted so that some maybe did get training, they just saying they're training in their building.
Yes, so it's both and, right? That the trainings that occur during our PD availability. And for example, we have a district admin team meeting that occurs, and we dedicate one of those meetings to HIB. And so that training, every person who's an administrator in our district, central administration, ASCA, et cetera, they are a part of that training. The ABS individuals, they take those trainings and they backwards map them and turnkey them in their buildings. We also have training that occurs for a different category of employees per those PD days as well that occur. As far as whether there's a minimum number of trainings that should be occurring, I don't have that information off the cuff. Our solicitor, Ms. Butler, do you have that information by chance?
Yes, there's supposed to be, all staff are supposed to be trained a minimum of 1 time per year. For whatever reason, the reporting on the one school, it was one of the middle schools that indicated no trainings. There was training done at that school. It was just not reported accurately for SSDS purposes. But there were trainings done at all of the school buildings, and then trainings at different times for the paraprofessionals, for the bus drivers, the bus aides, the security staff, lunch monitors, separate one for coaches. So everybody was covered last year.
And just to confirm, I've received confirmation that the SACs are only at the high school, board member, right? There are no SACs at the middle school. I don't believe that this was a staff reduction, as we haven't reduced employees in a number of years. It just may be the design that the SACs, that there are no SACs that are assigned to our middle schools. Just want to make sure that we leave with the correct information.
Okay. I had one more. So,
okay, Board Member Joshua.
with our commitment to restorative practices, I'm just wondering, do we expect these numbers to go down? In particular, I saw that there was 2 incidences of violence at a K-2 school. So I'm just curious what that is and how do we employ restorative practices to reduce that number going forward?
Sure, yeah, I wouldn't want to speak to any specific incidents, as it may be a slippery slope connected to the confidentiality of a student, perhaps. What I would say is the restorative practices is both preemptive, but also in response to, right? That we know that, a bad thing may happen, but how do we respond to it? Do we respond to it by isolating the student and putting them, taking them away from, their communal society? Or do we think that there's a way that we can restore them? We can still, of course, have consequences that occur, but that our goal should be to try and make students whole, not to push them away. And so I think that I think that the answer to your question is that both and, right? That we can be preemptive, and restorative practices can help us to alleviate some concerns, but there will always be concerns. We have to be, we're people, and even little people will have conflicts that may be unexpected and must be addressed. And we want to make sure that how we address them is in a productive, restorative manner.
Thank you.
Great. Board Member E. Baker.
Hi, thank you. I'd like to understand how climate data that's in the SSDS report, whether it's HIB, vandalism, substance abuse, how that data is being reviewed both at the building level and in central office in real time to see, climate issues that are evolving in a building or improving in a building, and to ensure that administration, just in terms of oversight, is appropriately resourcing and addressing issues.
Thank you for that. So we have an incident report methodology, and we do sometimes share those incident reports with the board. Those incident reports really do drive how we are monitoring the climate and culture of buildings in real time, and to make sure that if central office needs to assist in addressing a specific incident, we're able to do so. Some of those incidents, they're very specific to some trends that we're seeing even in this report, right, around substance abuse and maybe in self-medicating. And so understanding that, and so the way that SSDS information is uploaded to the state level from each school, there's a designee in each school who does that. And again, I wouldn't want to drill down further than that because I wouldn't want to violate anyone's evaluative rights, right? But I'll say that one of the big levers, and that's why I put lever in our presentation, that we know we need to address is how information is leaving the building, right? How is it coming to central office? How is it going to SSDS? Is there not a level of consistency in how that's occurring? Whether it be in a virtual environment or not, we want to make sure that we're addressing that so that there is so that there's identical information being reported. One thing that we did share in this report, of course, is that we know that a single incident can spawn multiple marks on our SSDS data because we know that could occur. However, the real-time information, how incidents are reported, is via incident reports that come directly to my office, and we respond directly to them, to the school-based leaders.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. One more question is, do the building leadership, the principals and assistant principals, do they, provide you with any overview, in a narrative form of the climate issues or improvement in their building and what their plan is for the coming year to improve it, as well as any narrative or substantive reports regarding the meetings of the climate team for each building?
Sorry, Dr. Taylor, you're muted.
So as far as a submission to our office reflecting the climate of the buildings is not something that we have as a standard operating part of our district at this moment, but it could be something that we utilize to improve. I know that one thing that is a part of our district goals this year, it speaks to climate and culture improvements. And so that definitely is a consideration moving forward as we address the concerns that we have made the public and the board aware of tonight.
Great, and that also, I would hope, would inform some of the week of respect, which is great that all buildings had a week of respect this year. But how do you balance that team spirit with the underlying issues that are presenting in the HIB, in the culture, specifically use of technology, cyberbullying, texting, pictures, etc., that we know have been coming up. Board Member Carroll?
Yes, thank you, President Manning. So Dr. Taylor, thank you for your presentation. As you know, when we've spoken before, my concern is always underreporting versus overreporting, and acknowledging that reporting and having numbers that reflect the accuracy of the challenges that students are facing in our district is not necessarily negative. It shows that we can take action and help build better support student services. With that being said, in regards to the line item for substance abuse and also with the line item for HIB, which in my personal opinion seems to be low, what steps do you anticipate the district, with our new emphasis on social emotional learning and the extra counselors, knowing that climate crisis that we're in, climate and culture for schools because of COVID, it's exacerbating student mental health, that we're taking even further action to ensure that support systems are in place. So what we're not seeing this time in the next school year, even larger amount of numbers.
Thank you for that. And I agree that I think every school district, when you're looking at this information, there could be incidents that didn't fit nicely in the HIB definition, right? Or the student didn't feel comfortable coming forward, or the student didn't have a support system at home that made them feel confident about coming and seeking assistance. And so I agree that I'm looking for accuracy, and we're looking for opportunities to intercede, to be able to help both parties who are involved with HIB. We know that many times students who are aggressive, who are seen as the aggressor in these circumstances, also need assistance, right? That, people who are harmed harm others. And so I believe that what we've seen through our webinar systems this year is that we're providing lots of opportunity for virtual support of our families. In our recent newsletter, and also just tonight, we pushed out another opportunity for our families to utilize our district as a conduit to mental health support. And I think that will remain, from my perspective, a recommendation to the board in our annual budget, that we continue to invest in this area, both programs and people. One thing that, of course, disappointed me about being in a virtual setting now is one of the investments that we really wanted to see come to fruition this year that we can't because of COVID, is the day of intervention. I won't use the brand name because there are many who utilize this, and we had it as a part of our budget presentations, like a character day, based on, and really it's a day for us to make safe space in our buildings for students to have connections and to be able to, especially at the secondary level, be able to really pull back their layers and have support and create a real family atmosphere, and break down some of the protective barriers that we all put up. And we're not able to do that virtually, but we're definitely going to keep that as part of our budget recommendation for next year. And I think that we're showing that even just our complete newsletter this month was all about this topic, and it's the second one that we've done, and not just for our families, but also for our employees, knowing that this is a tough time for everyone, and that we need to pay special attention to that. And so I hope that answered the question, but I feel like we are seeing some bang for our buck when it comes to not just our newly hired mental health support folks, our social workers and guidance counselor, but they also have interns who are connected to them now that add to our mental health army that we have to support our families. Dr. Alegria, anything to add to that I might have missed?
Just trying to unmute as well, Dr. Taylor. I was just going to agree with you. We're just trying to increase our virtual supports that we're offering in terms of reaching out to families and holding them multiple different webinars so that we can provide some additional supports to families. Our social work interns have also been doing some socially distanced home visits as well to some of our families who are in support or in need of support. And so we're just really trying to think outside of the box as we can best support families during this difficult time. We know that students' mental health is definitely a concern. And so we want to make sure that we're trying as many different ways of reaching families and students as possible, whether that's virtually dropping into classes, whether that's doing the socially distanced home visits, weekly phone call check-ins, just trying to find ways that we can really try to reach as many families and students as possible during this time.
Thank you. Board members, any other questions on this topic?
Dr. Taylor, can you tell me if we're looking at culture and climate at all?
Definitely. We definitely are. And I think that while it's more difficult to do in a virtual setting, right, we all understand that. Part of our principals report outs to us include that, right, include highlighting challenges that are occurring virtually. And part of our, I believe it's district goal number 4, I believe, it speaks to culture and climate as it pertains to a review of maintaining our staff, right? Maintaining our talent and looking at how climate and culture could impact that. I believe that's district goal number 4. We're part of it anyway. But yes, definitely. And I think it's all that we do. Like, you know, all these things that we do are connected to the culture and climate of our schools. When board student rep Foreman is going to share some information around the student surveys that we've done recently, and we've also shared previous ones. And we think all these things connect to climate and culture. That it's much broader than a singular review.
Yeah. So what are we doing to build it?
I think it's what we all do, right? I think it's a part of all the professional development that we detailed, not only in this presentation, but that the board approved us carving out in our days, right? You know, we have a new methodology, I believe started about 1.5 years ago on professional development days, those half days. And also, of course, even in the way that we have redesigned our central administration to refocus our energies and our assets on areas that we value. You know, now we have an assistant superintendent of C&I as well as a director of C&I showing our emphasis on curriculum. We have an assistant superintendent of access and equity showing our commitment to access and equity. We've elevated our special services to now be led by an assistant superintendent as well. To me, those investments represent, even though we didn't spend more money on central office, we redesigned how we spent our money to show the emphasis of what we deem as most important. Similarly, when we look at how the board supported us, you know, being able to have the hub and the loft at the high school and Maplewood Middle School when it was taken away, some of the advocacy that the board showed with that is another way that we continue to support climate and culture in our buildings. And nothing beats, of course, the professional development and the expectations around those. And part of us maintaining that is, you know, keeping our students and families tethered to our schools, even though we're in a virtual setting.
Okay, now we don't have the SAC for the middle school. I would love to see them have that. I think it's really, really important, especially since we've had mishaps on what is reported to SSDS. So how are we going to address that effectively? I think the middle schools, as Board Member Cuddle was talking about the, the social and emotional well-being and the things that the kids need with a counselor such as this, especially during this time. In middle school, we know is that gateway. That's when kids begin to need that kind of assistance.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and that's why I applaud the board at investing in an additional mental health specialist for both of our middle schools. I think that we could review our data and speak to our principals and talk about if a SAC is needed, and maybe a full-time SAC isn't not needed, but maybe we need to connect our SACs, or maybe have a SAC split between those buildings. I just wouldn't be able to make that kind of recommendation without looking at it further. But I think that I've seen in other places SACs serve the middle schools and the high schools because there was a less of a need at the middle school. They were able to make themselves available when it was necessary. But we can look deeper into it when we make our budget presentations and our budget reviews and talk about it.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. So Dr. Taylor, there was a question about enrollment data that you were going to provide an update. There was an email question from a board member, right?
Right. So I know Mr. Roth was and I were talking during one of our meetings around the ASSA October 15th report out, and there was a change in that date and when the official information will be available. Mr. Roth, you want to tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, the ASSA report application for state school aid is due on December 3rd. It is, of course, data that's based on an October 15th enrollment snapshot, but there are a lot of steps that go into verifying the October 15th enrollment. There are send-receive relationships with various school districts. There are some students who have left the district and didn't notify the district, and they appear in a neighboring school, could be West Orange, Livingston, somewhere out of state. And during the time between October 15th and December 3rd, we have staff that is reconciling all of these anomalies. So for instance, West Orange and our district may be claiming the same student as being there, and we have to square away the registration records and find out if the parent moved or if someone made a mistake, and it takes some time to work through all of these. It's a procedure that hasn't changed. It's been in place for years and years. The state memorialized the new procedures with the advent of creating NJ Smart, almost 20 years ago. And, so everyone puts in their initial enrollment count. And then from there, the conflicts get squared away. And by December 3rd, everything is settled and we have a report available.
Okay. So I guess, Mr. Roth, what my misunderstanding was the October 15th submission to the state is not the same October 15th data that we eventually use during budget season because of these anomalies.
No, it's actually the same data. What we end up getting is the verified enrollment, and along with that, we match it up against transportation records, students placed in out-of-district schools, the transportation requests from non-public schools for transportation aid. So all of that has to get reconciled, and it's part of the process. And December 3rd is pretty much the closing time with that, and everything ties together.
Okay. Board Member Baker?
Thank you. At a more granular level, in addition to the overall district and school enrollment data, based on October 15th, we usually receive a class size report. So I just would ask when we'll be able to expect that. And then the other question I had, and I'm not looking to commission data, but I do think it goes to both climate as well as our distance learning situation is my sense, just as a member of the community, is that there has been a tremendous amount of kind of social upheaval, right, in our community, both families leaving either temporarily or permanently, as well as, large numbers of families relocating from New York or other more urban areas. And so I would, perhaps it's in budget season or at some point, I think it would be helpful to understand whether, even if our enrollment hasn't changed overall, has been an increase of families leaving, or students leaving the district compared to prior years? And if so, where did they go, such as private school, or did they move? And has there been a larger number of students joining the district than in prior years? Because that could net out and not reflect much of an overall change, but yet it could within our schools, as well as our transition of students in and out, reflect both challenges, bringing new students in, particularly when we're in a virtual setting, as well as, I think, what many on the board have asked for some time, which is, not exactly an exit interview, but some type of data report as to where students are going when they leave our district. So I just want to put that out there, that the overall enrollment won't necessarily, will just tell us, a very superficial kind of picture in terms of where we are, but we need both the class size as well as the kind of entry into our district and exit from our districts, by school or grade level.
Yeah, I've shared with Dr. Friedman the class size report that we generated last year. I believe last year went out to the board in December or January, and we'll be preparing that and hopefully adding to some of the layers of that as well. I agree that analyzing the year over year, maybe even multiple years, the enrollment piece may not tell the full story, right? Because we are seeing an increase every year. Even if it's just less than 100 students, it's still showing a trajectory that we can anticipate. And so when this is all reconciled in December, as Mr. Roth noted, we'll be able to take a deeper dive into that. Again, not every family even notifies us of, by more than an email through the registration office and local school that they're leaving us. I've had personal experience with a few parents who said, okay, this is just, overall, my family's overwhelmed in general, and we're going to take a break and we'll come back when everything is virtual, is hybrid, or even next year. We're going somewhere else, right? And somewhere else means a different state. And so, but that conversation may not be memorialized in their if they did a withdrawal action. So just saying that to say that whatever information is available, we have no problem sharing it. It just may be limited as far as how deep the information goes when some of those withdrawal actions are taken.
Thank you, Dr. Board Member Zubieta.
Yeah, another administrative question. You can see I'm interested in data. So it seems like between October and December, enrollment data is reconciled. But a few months back, when we looked at graduation data, there were some instances, in my opinion, quite a few instances, where we kind of lost track of a few students, and we didn't know if they had withdrawn, if they were, if they had enrolled somewhere else, if they were part of, one of our out-of-district placements. So if we're reconciling by December, why are we still struggling around May, June?
I would say that we're not struggling. I think out of the information that we shared from the class of 2020, I think that you're correct. Only one or two students, maybe just a few students who who fell into the realm of either drop out or withdrawn without further information. And when that occurs, it's exactly how it sounds, right? A student stops coming to school. The family takes no action. And when we reach out to the family, there's no response. Those are examples of how that could occur. It doesn't really connect to this reconciliation because this is a district-wide reconciliation, whereas the graduation rate, it reflects the 9th grade cohort. So if as long as I started my 9th grade journey, I'm a part of that cohort. During that 4 years, many things could occur, and something could occur that we can't monitor. But only a couple of incidents that from what I recall, the majority of the students were able to be accounted for. Some of them were actually in 5-year or more programs. So that was good information for us to have on a granular level. But I don't think that that this October 15th /ASSA data impacts that data. I think that that it's two separate pots, if I would say, that the students who are on that graduation report are part of that cohort forever, right? They're either part of the 4-year cohort or the 5-year cohort. I hope that that's clear. I'm sorry if I'm confusing you.
No, I do understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Okay, so we can move on to the president's update. So I just, as we enter another cycle of pandemic-related illnesses and as cases are spreading and the continuation of our children being out of school, we must all be vigilant to look out for the mental health and well-being of our children, their friends, and our neighbors in general. The isolation and the lack of a sense of control over our environment is taking a toll on everyone, children, teachers, parents, and we need to be extra careful with our words and our actions. Please encourage children to reach out to the teachers, the guidance department, and the building leaders for support and help. And as Dr. Taylor mentioned, there are resources available as listed on our website. And I thank everyone for caring for our community. This week is also Transgender Awareness Week, and the CHS Spectrum Club has a series of events scheduled, culminating in Friday's National Day of Remembrance for all LGBTQ peoples that have lost their lives to violence because of who they are. I believe there will be a memorial or a presentation at the Maplewood Town Hall. I want to thank our SOMEA and ASCA members for working on the reopening task force and for being agile as issues are identified and solutions sought. Your willingness to identify issues and seek solutions supports the entire district, and we appreciate all your efforts and the spirit of cooperation. Dr. Taylor, the board appreciates your willingness to be transparent in identifying issues related to the reopening plan. We agree that utilizing the construction supervisors will bring a level of supervision and support to our own staff and will build a level of trust for our community. The board looks forward to an improved attention to quality control in everything that every adult in this district brings to their work. It is normal for the November meeting to include congratulations to our new board members, but the results have not yet been finalized, so we will do that at the December meeting. I do think it is fair to assume that board member Zubieta will continue to serve for this coming year. So congratulations to you, but we will formally do that in December. At the December meeting, we will also acknowledge the service of the board members who are leaving the board, Elizabeth Baker, Robin Baker, and Tony Mazzocchi. And on January 6th, we will have a reorg meeting, which will include the oath of office for our new board members, as well as ethics training for all board members. Finally, I would like to acknowledge the retirement of Karen Weiland, social worker extraordinaire and founder of the Parenting Center. Karen imagines programs that will fill all the needs and then makes those programs and supports happen. Her enthusiasm and commitment to having a sincere impact on our children and families encourages others to volunteer and donate their time and their money. I see Karen's legacy continuing as Dr. Taylor has committed to expanding social workers at the secondary schools and to find ways to support families there as well. Thank you, Karen, and best wishes for a great retirement. Student Representative Foreman, would you like to give your update now?
Yes, thank you. And I also want to echo everything you said about Miss Weiland. When I've gotten to work with her, it's just been incredible, and I think she's really enhanced everyone's experience in the district. So to start with some Columbia news, the CHS Parnassian Society will be presenting a virtual theatrical performance of an original play, Duplicity. Opening night is Thursday, November 19th at 8 p.m. with additional performances Friday, November 20th and Saturday, November 21st, also at 8 p.m. The virtual open house will open at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are not required, but audience members will have the option to make donations to the CHS Parnassian Society if they would like to. Those links to those Zoom performances can be found on the CHS website and will also be emailed to parents and students. Next, I'm very excited to start working with Jakai, who was sworn in tonight as the alternate student representative. Just to kind of explain what that process was, I know Board President Manny mentioned it a little bit. The role of the alternate is usually given to the second place winner of the student representative election. This year, I was the only one who ran. The elections were in October. And the Board of Ed bylaws give the superintendent the responsibility of appointing the alternate. Dr. Taylor deferred to Principal Sanchez because of his proximity and work with students. And Principal Sanchez worked with the student council advisors, who are Mr. McCormick and Ms. Solomon, to pick Jakai based on his involvement with student council and other school clubs, his strong rapport with teachers and students, and his dedication and responsibility, all of which I have witnessed myself. And I'm excited for the board to be able to work with him. Our terms will both end in June 2021 when the new representatives will be elected and Jakai and I will graduate. The election cycle was thrown off a little bit due to COVID, so we're hoping to get it back on track then. And I'm looking forward to talking with the board and Dr. Taylor about how Jakai and I can best work together to represent all students. So congratulations, Jakai. Last month, I distributed a student survey to collect student feedback on how virtual learning is going so far and what students hope to see in a potential hybrid model. Even though the district's plans have changed slightly since that survey was distributed, I think the results still provide really important insights. So I'll briefly share some of the highlights. The survey received 1,241 responses from CHS students last I checked. Over 60% described their experience with online learning this fall as being somewhat or much better than it was in the spring. Almost 75% said they have somewhat more or much more work than they did now than they did before online learning. When asked to describe their experience with Canvas, the most common response was that their experience had been inconsistent and depended a lot on the teacher. When asked what changes they most want to see, the top 3 responses from students were to have more asynchronous days, to have longer breaks between classes, and to have more consistency on Canvas in that order. Around 70% said that they felt the level of district communication was sufficient. And in terms of learning platforms, students feel most comfortable with most comfortable with Google Meets and least comfortable with WebEx. So I was glad to see that students have seen an improvement in their experience from the spring, but it was also clear that there are many issues that students are experiencing difficulty with and want to see changes in. We know that virtual learning will never be the same as in-person learning, but I think there are clear things that we can do to enhance students' experiences. So based on these results, in my meetings with administration this month, I advocated for more asynchronous days, a return to 10-minute breaks between classes, which we had in the first 2 weeks of school, instead of a 5-minute break, which we have now, and more professional development around how to use Canvas to ensure that all teachers have a standard system. I'm looking forward to continuing these conversations as plans evolve. That concludes my report tonight. And before I hit mute, I just want to make sure, I'm not sure if you want to, Jakai, because I know it's a little late, but I just want to make sure that if he wants to, that Jakai has a chance to introduce himself, but no pressure. And I'm not sure if it's possible with WebEx. But that concludes my report. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Bonds. Oh, you're already unmuted. Great. Thank you, Mr. Bonds.
Well, I just want to say thanks, Lily, for that shout out. It was pretty good. I'm really excited to work alongside you guys. I'm really excited to see how everything goes down this is the Board of Ed. I'm excited to work with Lily. She's a great partner. I've worked alongside her for a few years now, I think, in various clubs. And just thank you, everyone, for the opportunity.
Welcome. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Board Student Representative Foreman. My tongue is twisting today. So now we are at the time for our first public speaks. This is an opportunity for you to share your concerns about an item on the agenda, but is not a time for dialogue with the board. Thank you for sending in your questions or comments. Many community members have found it more efficient to submit their public speaks via the BOE questions form on the website, as the WebEx chat Q&A has a character limit. We continue to encourage families to reach out to their building leader and Dr. Taylor. As I mentioned at the start of the meeting, for the December meeting, we will be able to offer live public speaks, and that process will be shared prior to the meeting. So, Dr. Taylor?
Thank you. Mr. Bonds, can you please email me any public speaks that you've received? And I will check my email now. While we wait for that, board members, just an FYI that during our monthly meeting, student board rep Foreman did share with me the results of the survey, and I just pushed those out to you via your email so you can put a visual to what was just shared. And it was actually, again, very informative to get the students' feedback. I have received the public speaks attachment from Mr. Bonds. I'm going to, again, as we do as we do for every meeting, I'll be reading the public speaks, and I'll also have my timer. Public speaks cannot exceed 1 hour and 3 minutes per comment. The first public speaks is from Nicole Stewart. I want to address the detached way that our school district seems to be run. Our board and superintendent seem to run it without accountability, transparency, or compassion. It has been frustrating to listen to the buck get passed constantly and to see our leaders refuse to model reflection and awareness. What's more frustrating is that this is our children's education and future, not a business transaction. It is something that needs to be run from an emotional and personal space. I've sensed this for a while, and the pandemic has made these issues very clear. It has also shown that our district leaders are underperforming when compared to other local districts. With regards to accountability, what is the purpose in blaming others or getting defensive? Why do our district leaders shift accountability to our teachers who are busting their butts to do what they can with the limited resources they have? When saying that facility supplies are on back order, why is there no acknowledgement of the system that SOMSD used to identify which supplies were needed? I would like to see our superintendent and board shift their mindset to stop complaining why no one else does their jobs and reflect on their own role in missteps. Sure, supplies are back ordered and that's out of our control. What is within our control, in the control of the superintendent? Why did the same thing happen with supplies or school supplies? My 6-year-old does not have a math workbook yet, and it's nearly December. I'd like to know why and what the district intends to do to improve their system for the future. The issue is related to transparency as well. I know that we have a communications director, but it's unclear what that person does. It seems to be that everything is under a veil of secrecy, but as parents, we are your primary stakeholders. And at the top of the pyramid, stop protecting us and spending time creating lengthy emails that beat around the bush. And if legally your hands are tied with some information, please tell us that. There's a basic lack of trust in our community with the board, superintendent, and district leaders. That's 3 minutes. As I normally do, I will respond briefly to public speaks. We definitely acknowledge the comments made by Nicole Stewart, but I do not agree. I think that we have really communicated and tried to be as transparent as possible. We are pushing out communications and trying to, of course, balance the communication to make sure that we're not overwhelming families with our communiques, but also giving timely and very detailed ones. But and I of course welcome feedback and criticism that can help us improve what we're doing. But I just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware of the communications portion of our website that holds every newsletter and social media postings that we launched last year as well to help share information. Thank you for your feedback. I'm resetting my stopwatch here. The next public speaks is from Heather Hartzell. Can you please let us know the status of the work being done and corrected to get school buildings ready for opening in January? There are a lot of families who are relying on the buildings to reopen, as virtual learning is not working for all students, particularly younger students and special education IEP students. I'll stop there. Thank you, Ms. Hartzell. We did give an update on that at the beginning of this meeting. Resetting my stopwatch here. The next public speaks is from Alyssa Malaspina. Can you please inform the public of the district's enrollment numbers for this year, which were due to the state on October 15th? Also, how do numbers compare to last year? Again, another timely question. Thank you, Ms. Malaspina. Mr. Roth was able to respond to this, that October 15th data has been submitted, and now it's again being reconciled. This is another public speaks from Alyssa Malaspina that is next. Can you please outline the policy and protocol that the district has in place to inform parents when a student tests positive for COVID? Yes, so our district lead nurse and Dr. Alegria of Special Services, they are our lead contacts when it comes to COVID. When a case arises, either student or staff member, they are immediately notified, Dr. Alegria and Nurse Porter, and they of course notify our local health departments. And of course that can work in reverse order, where our health departments are informing us of a positive case that may need to be contact traced. And then we utilize our personnel to do that contact tracing. Right now we're working with the board again to continue to develop communication platforms that help us to share this information as we move closer to a hybrid opening. Resetting my stopwatch here. The next public speaks is from Allison Doobie. Dear Dr. Taylor and Board of Education members, my question is about K2 specials. Initially, when remote school started, K2 children had specials within their school day. I understand that some parents thought that was too much synchronous learning for their students, and specials were made available as asynchronous as well. And while I certainly respect other parents deciding their child needs more asynchronous learning, I don't believe any survey was taken to see just how many K2 parents felt that way. Furthermore, that decision was made very early in the school year, and in the first 2 weeks, teachers were keeping the kids on screen longer because they had to introduce the new technology. Now my first grade children are on screen for a lesson, and then often they are doing work in their notebook, so they are not on screen all day anyway. It's also worth keeping in mind that the school day is quite short and there are multiple screen breaks throughout the day. Once asynchronous specials became an option, synchronous specials for those who wanted to continue to do them, at least at Marshall, were scheduled much, much later than the end of the school day. I'm not sure about all elementary schools, but at Marshall, kindergartners have specials at 1:45, first graders at 2:15, and second graders at 2:45. Along with many, many parents I have spoken to, I'm asking for this timing to be reconsidered so that specials are either at 12:05, so some children can still opt for asynchronous, or if the break between 12:05 and when the specials start could be much shorter. With winter bringing cold weather and dark days, having specials 2 hours later makes it difficult for parents to get their children outside for activities without having to rush to get them back inside on the screen. We are all deeply concerned about the emotional state and the physical activity of our children, and the more time they can get outside during daylight, the better. That much is clear. I can't imagine this was the intention, but by making specials so much later in the day, many families I've talked to were made to feel the district no longer values them and they are just skipping specials altogether. But many kids truly appreciate having a live lesson and seeing their wonderful teachers getting feedback from them. Today, my daughter got the MVP for PE and was jumping up and down with excitement. That's 3 minutes there, so I have to stop. And again, that was Allison Doobie. And just to have a quick response here, just to know, we are happy to have your feedback because it does help us to inform the work that we're doing. And we're also very sensitive to consistency that students have become accustomed to with any adjustment that we make. I have received, I believe, an email from a few parents who felt the same way that you do. And so we are giving considerations to what the next level of hybrid / all virtual selections look like. And so we will use that feedback to help inform our conversations. Again, I can't promise that what the shift will look like if it will address your concerns, but do know that you have been heard and that we're really valuing consistency now because we know that for many of our families and our students, they lack consistency. And so providing what is to be expected daily is very important for them and for their mental health. I'm resetting my stopwatch here. The next public speaks is from Scott Sinkler. Dr. Taylor, I would like to congratulate you on the improvements to your Friday as a matter of fact newsletter. They are well designed and filled with easy to access information. Could I ask you to please turn your attention to the SOMSD website? It's obviously the most logical place that families turn to for information, and it's still subpar. If you pull down quick links to parents, to school calendars, you could feel for a moment as if you're in the pre-COVID era because the calendar is a year old. I know that, and that concludes Mr. Sinkler's public speaks. I know that we have our most updated calendars on our website, and I also know that there is a plan to update our website. I think it's only a couple of years old, but we see that there are definitely areas that we can improve it. And we thank you for the feedback on our newsletters. We're trying to make them as relative as possible to our families and what they need and what they find as engaging, and also, of course, informative. Thank you for that feedback. Starting my stopwatch here. The next public speaks is from Marion Cutler. I write to you tonight with two concerns: accountability and communications. With regards to accountability, after two failed attempts to reopen schools, first in August and then in October, it is apparent we continue to struggle with being and holding each other accountable. While we can rationalize it away with messaging about challenging times or a new administration, the fact that administration and the board elected for its oversight has failed our district to then add insult to injury to allow 4 weeks before reconvening in public is inexcusable. We have problems from inadequate HVAC systems to missing filters to inadequate curriculum to ineffective teachers. And it's time to get serious about shining much needed light on these problems. The first step this administration and this BOE, including the newest 3 still to be seated, should immediately revert back to open BOE meetings every 2 weeks. You all say you want to ensure the district is purposefully transparent and open with all communications. It's time to live up to your campaign and job interview promises. Under current circumstances, the BOE and administration has a lot to make up for in building trust with the community. Start first by talking with us more every 2 weeks until the bulk of our issues are resolved. Secondly, with regards to communications, we've all had to adapt to conducting business in virtual settings. Like the BOE is using WebEx tonight, but at no time have our teachers, students, or parents in their professional lives been forced to abdicate our voices. The BOE in our district is not practicing what it preaches for our teachers or students, and it's so doing is doing a serious disservice to our communities by not having open public speaks. This is easily done by the official host of these meetings and can be timed to ensure the arbitrary and artificial allocation of 3 minutes remains in place. I cannot encourage you enough to let the public speak, let their emotion, their frustration, their praise, and their pride show through. Let their time and engagement with the BOE be recognized by each voice, quiver, and flash of passion. As our board president stated earlier, we will be instituting live public speaks at our next Board of Education meeting. And regarding accountability and the scheduling of board meetings, that is indeed acknowledged as a concern that you've submitted to us. I do think that, we try to be as transparent as possible with challenges that we have experienced, not just this year, but throughout my short tenure, and we will continue to do so. And we can always, of course, do better in improving our transparency. Starting here, CPAC Board Rep Beth Constantino. Dr. Taylor, Board of Education members, administration, and community members, good evening. We, the leadership of the Special Education Parent Advisory Committee, aka CPAC, listened to the concerns of families of special education students in our district and pay attention to how these concerns are addressed. We are pleased with Dr. Alegria's efforts, particularly how she and the Special Services Department are helping teachers and families come up with individualized virtual programs for their students. We know there are more families who need support for their students and encourage teachers to read through the virtual accommodations manual that was provided to help them support every student individually. We also appreciate that Dr. Alegria is available to meet with us regularly and makes a point to drop in on our CPAC community meetings. Up until her arrival, we had yet to have a leader of special services be so available, well-versed, in the issues and transparent. In late September, the district prioritized 3 self-contained special education classes at Columbia High School for in-person learning, and we commend you for ensuring a safe return for these students, their teachers, and paraprofessionals. As Governor Murphy has left it up to each school district to decide what type of in-person instruction to offer, we urge you to continue to prioritize bringing back special education students, especially those who are in self-contained classrooms and the younger students struggling the most. You recognize the need to bring in younger students before older ones and the hybrid plans phase and start. We hope you recognize the even greater need for special education students to return sooner. We support relying on safety precautions first and foremost to going back inside buildings. However, there are now approximately 20 classrooms at Columbia High School opened safely. This leads us to ask, what about the other schools? We know some of them continue to have childcare through the YMCA, but we understand this arrangement would not be a deterrent to bringing in the relatively few preschool, elementary, and middle school self-contained special education students. We'd like to know that you are using all the available resources for these classes to make a safe return. We believe that our most vulnerable students should not be reliant on the district-wide hybrid plan, but they should have their own trajectory to returning to their buildings. These students have, that's our time here. I'm sure that Dr. Alegria definitely appreciates the shout out from CPAC. We are all trying to be as available as we can be with some of our groups that represent, large portions of our populations, whether it's President's Council, CPAC, or others. Very appreciative of the positive feedback of our Assistant Superintendent for Special Services. And we also most definitely acknowledge the advocacy that you continue to bring for special needs families and the possible earlier return for them. That concludes the public speaks that I've received through email here. I'm shifting back to WebEx. I don't see any questions in our WebEx. To our board president, that concludes public speaks.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Okay. So now we are ready for the discussion portion of the meeting. And tonight that is committee reports as well as an update from the NJSBA directors meeting. So board member Joshua, do you want to start with finance?
Sure. I know there's one of the pieces of my report is going to deal with the asbestos report. So should I have Mr. Roth? I know he has to read something into the record. Should I be done at this time? I didn't see it on the agenda, so I'm not sure when it was scheduled.
I would love the opportunity to read the letter now.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Roth.
All right, here we go. The following letter was distributed via email to all staff members and to parents and guardians via the community digital backpack. This is regarding the Asbestos Management Plan. The Asbestos Hazardous Emergency Response Act of 1986 requires that the Board of Education notify you each year that there is an asbestos management plan in each facility owned by the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education. These plans are available for your review without cost or restriction through the Chief Administrator of each building. Copies are available for a reasonable fee. Periodic surveillance inspections were done at all school facilities in February 2020 and September 2020. If you have any questions regarding the asbestos management plan, you can contact me, Paul Roth, the business administrator, at 973-762-5600, extension 1801. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Board member Chancellor.
Thank you. Okay, so the Finance Committee met earlier this month, November 5th. 3 of the members are in attendance. We had a couple things. First and foremost, the bond sale was completed. It's a $60 million bond sale. This is the second of the 3 tranches related to our facilities plan. It was completed on October 22nd, an interest rate of 2.33%, which was better than our expected 2.5%. There were 4 bidders on the bond. Morgan Stanley came in at the lowest and therefore was awarded the bond. The money, the $60 million, will hit the account early November, and then there's some accounting that Mr. Roth will be doing to move it to the requisite accounts. Next, the long-range facilities plan. Last time we met, our projects were in the mid-30s in terms of review by the New Jersey Code Review Board. That we have moved up quite a bit. 4 of our 6 projects, and that's Clinton, Jefferson, Seth Boyden, and Tuscan. So basically the Maplewood ones are currently being reviewed by the NJDOE. Projected bidding for these projects is anticipated in December once the approval is done. And then after that, South Mountain / Indianix, as well as Marshall, will be up for review and then bidding, hopefully early in the new year. I just want to bring attention to some of the resolutions that are on the agenda for tonight. 4074I relates to custodial contract as we switch to a new vendor in October and reached an agreement with the previous vendor on that issue. 4074L is authorization for this draft estimate upgrade, which board member Siders discussed last month's meeting on policy. This upgrade will allow for searchable features and allow us to do better things in terms of pulling up policies on the website. There are also a few grants that are up this evening in order. 4074G, that's $11,500 to the Parenting Center. 4074H is $10,000, and that's a donation to a grant to Beyond the Bell. And then lastly, 4074K, which is $324,000, and that grant is to allow us for compliance with Alyssa's law. The audit on our financials done annually by the state, this extension has once again been extended to January. The deadline, has been extended to January, so it'll be presented at that time. This is the 3rd year in a row that's happened, and it's just been issues with the state. I'm sure COVID has played a role in that as well. And lastly, just a little bit of additional color on the HVAC discussion that was held earlier in the evening and the update provided by Dr. Taylor. The supply of filters that have been ordered will cover the remaining of the school year. Normally, filters are changed 3 times a year, so we will have a supply available for that. And walkthroughs will be scheduled after each building's work is completed by the management company that we've brought on, the construction management company we've brought on. That concludes the finance report for this evening. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Board member Siders, do you want to do policy?
Yes, thank you. So policy met Wednesday, November 11th. We had 3 board members in attendance. Board member Cuddle filled in for board members E. Baker and Maney. Let's see, we're going to start off with, let's see, we had Strauss Esme, our vendor for school policy and regulation consulting services. So Strauss Esme attended our policy meeting. We use their services for access to their repository of policies and regulations, and they keep us informed of any state or federal education law changes. So the representative who attended our meeting was providing a demo of some additional services that they provide. The additional service is called District Online. This is a repository on their website that houses school district specific policies. So instead of housing our policies on the SOMSD website, the policies would be housed on Strauss Esme's website, and we would have a link from our website to the Strauss Esme website. So this District Online has two components to it. One is called the managerial tool, which will be used by central office to upload policies. And this tool has reference data on the New Jersey Administrative Code. It has state statutes, links to regulations, and other policies that are impacted by the code. The other part of District Online is the public access piece. This is the website or web link that will be available to anyone who wanted to view our policy. Users would be able to search by words, by phrases, by policy numbers, or they would be able to just use the table of contents. The cost for District Online is roughly an additional $2,200 a year. Our current contract with Strauss Esme costs about $2,500 annually. If we were to adopt their District Online services, it will be that additional $2,235 plus a one-time fee of about $2,000, and then a one-time fee for converting our existing policies over to their system. To do this would take roughly 6 to 8 weeks for that migration and conversion. And as board member Joshua discussed, the Finance Committee does have some of the information about that financial impact. So why we're looking for these additional services through Strauss Esme, board members, I sent an email this weekend that informed that we're running out of space/capacity on our district website. As a result, our approved policies can't be uploaded to the website. And based on my analysis, the last time we updated policies on our website was July 2020. I do want to apologize to board members and the community because I am the policy chair, and this really falls under my responsibility. In addition, our committee meeting minutes have not also been able to be uploaded to the website, which also is detailed in the email. So this is something that we need. So before I finish the rest of my policy update, are there any questions about this in particular?
Board Member Baker?
I mean, I support purchase of the repository, but my question is, how do we expect to be compliant for CUSAC in terms of uploading our policies? And I don't, since most of the policies are being revised and aren't new policies, I don't understand the capacity issue. I understand the way they're stored by section of the manual is incredibly voluminous and not efficient. But I don't think we have 8 weeks before the state comes, and so what is the technological solution? In the shorter term. And I appreciate Chair Siders, acknowledging the gap in terms of posting the policies, but this has also been an administrative issue that's plagued the district's operations, and I don't understand where the internal check comes from. I'm not finger pointing at anyone, but we have to have a system to actually make sure this gets done, and if there's a technological issue, to manage it up for the board. And we're not running the website, we're not posting things on the website. We don't have that authority or capacity, so we need to have gaps or obstacles reported to us.
Just to chime in, I think that there may be a misunderstanding on the large PDFs versus website capacity. I wanted to ask Mr. Bonds to chime in on that.
Good evening, everyone. The website itself is not out of capacity. We have a large amount of storage for our website files. There is an issue with large page PDFs being displayed on the website itself. So when a viewer clicks on a PDF that's over 1,000 pages, it causes their viewer to crash, so they can't view the actual file. So we've done a workaround where essentially when you go to the policy section of the website now and you click on the policy, you have a download button. When you click on that, that downloads that PDF to your computer and you open up the file. So that's a short-term solution until we get something in place like the Strauss-Esme solution. But the site itself is not out of capacity. We have a large quantity of storage, but it is an issue with large size PDFs, specifically with multiple page PDFs that are over 500 pages or so.
So will we be able to post the policies that have been adopted since May before CUSAC comes? And then put it up in the system? Thank you. Thank you as always, Mr. Bonds.
And then board member Siders, we might want to recommend to administration that they don't have the whole policy manual as one set and then individual subsections. Maybe we just do the individual subsections as a way to get us over this. Board members of Biedra?
Yes. Thank you, Board Member Siders, for telling us about some of the advantages of moving our policies eventually over to the Strauss-Esme repository. I wanted to highlight one other benefit that I know I would personally have benefited from joining the board, and I think it will help parents as well, is that a repository on Strauss-Esme is very much searchable, and not just by keyword, but by many things like statute, if the same statute is cited in multiple policies, or it can be searchable by adoption date, and it can be sorted and filtered. And I found that aspect to be very promising because I know personally I've sometimes looked for example, everything related to how grade point averages are calculated. And then all of a sudden, if I could type that in, I could come up with the 3 policies. That's just a hypothetical that have something to do with GPAs and their calculations. So I hope that the public would find it equally exciting.
Board Member Joshua?
Yes, question just on, we know what it would take to put our stuff on the Strauss-Esme system, but I guess my question is always, once we start offloading things like that, what does it take to get it back? Like if we decided that, you know, either it costs too much, we found a better vendor, you know, we were just unhappy with them for whatever reason. I'm just curious what, you know, switching costs would be. And that may be for Mr. Bonds.
At least from my understanding of the process, I used something similar in my former district. My understanding is we get these changes or recommendations from Strauss-Esme first, and now we adopt them and put them in PDFs and then upload them. Since we're doing redline changes and making changes to Strauss-Esme, we would still retain that ability. Similar to our old website, I can crawl the entire site and pull down all the files. So I have a way to archive sites. That should not be a problem.
Okay, thank you.
And that's also outside of whatever retention policy they have. We would own those policies regardless.
Board Member Siders, did Strauss-Esme, did we get a chance to gender neutral language and the things that we've been trying to do as a district?
We did not get a chance to talk about that. This was strictly about the district online survey. But that is something that we can bring up with them if we decide to go with this contract.
Thank you.
And here, I just want to real quickly finish going through the policy update. Let's see, we did have to pull one policy. It is the 5516.01 student tracking device policy. The committee had a lot of questions. This policy was up for second read, and the committee had a lot of questions on the policy. We also received feedback from CPAC in regards to how the policy impacts technology used by our special needs students. So we are going to bring this policy back for first read at a future date. Let's see, tonight there are 10 policies up for second read to be adopted. We have 7 policies up for first read. There are 4 of these policies that I just wanted to make note of items in the policy. The first one is 0165, which is the voting policy. There's a section about abstentions. And during our policy committee, we were talking about the language that I believe was recommended by Strauss Esme. And we thought that the language states that abstentions shall not be counted as votes, but shall be recorded. And then a semicolon, a member who abstains from voting is deemed to acquiesce in the outcome of the vote. So one thing that we were talking about is just how there are 2 cases that went before the appellate division of the New Jersey Superior Court that talked about the legal effect of abstention. And in both cases, the appellate division concluded that an abstention is not a vote at all. The abstention does not count as a yes or no vote. So that was just part of our conversation when we did get to that section of the policy. Another policy that we're making a revision is 0171, duties of president and vice president. We are adding language that the president may delegate to the appropriate committee of the BOE to ensure that we have a 5-year calendar review of policies and that the committee is following that plan. This policy was actually last adopted in 2019, but we wanted to add that extra responsibility regarding review of policies. Let's see, we have 0174, which is legal services. We are adding language that in an effort to be more prudent and efficient with public money, that board members, if board members have legal questions, that those legal questions will always go through the board president first to triage before the board members contact legal consult first. So we want to just make sure that everyone's aware of what the proper protocols are if you have legal questions. We have policy 0175, which is contracts with independent consultants. This policy we'd like to send to the Finance Committee and for Secretary Roth, because it does have some language around RFPs, requests for proposals, and the number of bids that we're allowed to accept. And that is it for policy. Are there any questions? And just one other item. In this month's policy committee meeting minutes is the information about the Strauss Esme District Online. It includes the cost, all the different types of fees if we decide to go with that.
Great, looking forward to that.
Thank you.
All right, Board Member E. Baker, would you like to give us CNI update?
Sure, thank you. So curriculum and instruction met last Tuesday, and we had the benefit of a very robust SLT presence on the committee. In addition to Dr. Taylor and Curriculum Director Ann Bodner and Dr. Alegria, we were joined by our newer Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, Dr. Friedman, who had attended I believe, his first committee meeting the prior month, as well as Dr. Perez, our Access and Equity Assistant Superintendent. So we met for almost 4 hours and still ran out of time to talk about everything that the district is working on and which we need to discuss. But just a quick overview from the agenda, you can see a high volume of curricula for approval. This month, this includes curricula that were ready for approval last month, but which had not made it into the board packet for review by the board members who, other than those who are on the committee, as well as the additional curricula that were ready this month. December is also going to be a high volume month. And so Dr. Friedman has agreed to forward those to the committee members as they're available for us to review and not hold them towards the end of the month for our committee meeting. That way we can get comments back in real time, as well as, possibly getting them out to the full board sooner. But we are going forward, all curricula for approval will be in the schoolboard.net packet that the board has for review prior to the meeting, so we don't have to rely on email. Dr. Friedman also briefed the board on the work that's underway to develop a curriculum approval cycle, which will, guide the district's work from one year to the next and provide the infrastructure for making sure that our curricula are reviewed continuously, not only against state standards, but for areas of improvement based on data or other developments in the district. And so I think that will actually help a great deal for board agenda planning going forward from one year to the next and consistency. Dr. Friedman is also recommending that we acquire a curriculum repository similar to the policy repository with Strauss-Esme, also searchable, to take our curriculum storage and usability and visibility to the next level from essentially a Google Drive format that is somewhat unwieldy for staff and for which we don't at this point have parent or student access other than the student access in terms of the distilled curriculum through Canvas. Board member Mizaki raised, I think, a very important point, which is that this is Canvas. There is some intersection with Canvas, and so the board will need to understand the relationship between the curriculum repository and Canvas as a learning management system to avoid redundancy. But also, we haven't had any Canvas-based reports from administration regarding teaching and learning, and since the quarter began, and so we do need to understand both how Canvas is being rolled out, but also begin to see the kind of data points about the educational experience and student outcomes that we that were one of the main draws to Canvas. There's also, as you've heard me mention already this evening, the state has scheduled its CUSAC review of the district to take place, I believe, at the end of January. The district internal review, which is the first round of that process, is scheduled for mid-December on tonight's board agenda is the resolution to approve the members of the CUSAC committee, which will conduct the district self-assessment, which then provides the baseline for the state review when they come in January. Dr. Taylor has tasked Dr. Friedman for being essentially an internal administrative kind of whip or driver for preparation and for the self-assessment and the state review. So that was, and that role transcends curriculum instruction and goes to the other areas of the district's operations and the CUSAC review. We did receive a quick update regarding the completion of the Star Renaissance assessments, as well as the Teachers College assessments that were being given to students, which would normally be given in the normal course, but are more important this year given distance learning and the need to assess both learning loss as well as skills gaps that need to be bridged sooner rather than later in order to support our students. We don't have any results or overview of those assessments. We have asked for a report, which Dr. Friedman indicated would be available in December, and that would include both what were the substantive results of the assessments, but also how is that data being used at the school level, classroom level, and individual student level. We were advised that interventions are, at least at the elementary level, are starting to be scheduled both at K2 through the academic interventionists and for grades 3 and up in the afternoon time with small group instruction. We don't have a report on the SLAM labs yet from Columbia High School, and Dr. Friedman will be meeting with the high school to assess both how the SLAM labs have functioned previously, and we'll come back with a recommendation or action plan to get them launched at the high school for the coming year. And then finally, we, as a board, we're supposed to have the Goal 3 report tonight regarding the essentially internal audit or review of where we are with implementation of the substantive requirements of the Comprehensive Equity Plan, the OCR Resolution Agreement, and the Black Parents Workshop, to have those in one framework together, and to essentially have a gap analysis to show which steps we've committed to are either not consistently in place yet, or not in place at all, and a plan of action as to how to get those in place. From there, we'll be able to begin measuring year over year work, not only in terms of the substantive implementation, but the actual results. And so that report was not ready, in part because of the additional review that's being done on the OCR resolution agreement. So rather than come forward with a partial report, which would essentially defeat the purpose of the goal, which was to have it in one comprehensive framework, the committee is recommended to the administration that we have that presentation next month. And we're also, it's not a small undertaking to figure out how to organize and create a way to show the intersections between the different commitments, but the progress. And so we're also willing to roll up our sleeves and provide feedback in terms of the framework model so that it's a useful tool for the board, the administration, and the community. And then last, we did not have an opportunity to discuss the Goal 3 action plans. So that should be on the agenda for December. I am going to have the ability to touch base with Dr. Friedman regarding the agenda for December, and also to prepare a transition for the next CNI committee with a new board and a new CNI chair. I also, we received a report, as always, very detailed report from Dr. Alegria regarding special services, including her collaboration with CPAC to improve the supports for families and the services for students. She was also, spoke at some length regarding the on-site PT and OT and speech therapy that's being provided to students, based out of the high school. And then she also was able to ask questions that we posed regarding out-of-district placements and how in-person out-of-district placements are working with respect to COVID and closures and quarantines. And while she said it is their daily updates from the many different provider schools, there have been no instances, at least as of our committee meeting, of any in-school transmission impacting our students, but that it is obviously a very time-sensitive and complicated body of work, but that they had good communication lines with the providers as well as in the transportation area. I believe that covers it. If my colleagues believe I left anything out, please jump in.
Any questions? Okay. All right. Robin, Board Member Baker, would you like to do the personnel update?
Okay, yes. On Wednesday, November 11th, the Personnel Committee was had the pleasure of having our first meeting with our Director of Human Resources, Ms. Stacy Robinson. So we were happy to welcome her to the group. We had full attendance at the meeting, and it primarily there were two very significant aspects of the meeting that can be discussed in public. A good deal of what we talked about is right on the edge of what would be appropriate to cover in open board meeting. But let's start with the first piece. The action items or resolutions were pretty routine, with the exception of one, where we learned of the retirement of of our social worker field supervisor, Ms. Karen Weiland, who's been with the district for 25 years and has been an indefatigable advocate for the children of the district. It would be impossible to list her contributions in one sitting, but suffice it to say that she will be sorely missed, and at some point in June of this year, we'll have an opportunity to let her know just how much we've all appreciated her work and her time in this district, and give lots of other people an opportunity to let her know as well. The good portion of the conversation that evening centered on district goal number 4. It had to do with staff recruitment, retention, and development. The bulk, and it was the action plan that was requested to help us understand the process and what activities and resources would be involved in accomplishing that goal. The action plan fell into 3 major segments: leadership development, recruitment and retention, and the increase in staff diversity. There was quite a bit of discussion about the indicators of success. Let me back up a little bit. The major activities to accomplish this goal under leadership and development would be a pilot program with Kean University, Aspiring Administrators Academy, and a mentoring program. Under recruitment and retention, recruitment fairs, internal and external, focused recruitment on high priority areas such as world language, science, math, nursing, and special education, and development of a culture/climate retention plan. And then the final area, increased staff diversity, would, it was kind of broadly worded, would focus on recruitment of diverse staff at historically Black colleges and universities. And there was a list of current job fairs that where we've been successful at finding diverse staff. The indicators of success, there's a lot of discussion around that, and the difference between listing what you will do to accomplish the goal versus how you actually measure the success of the goal. So there was like I said, robust discussion around that, and we'll look forward to a little bit of reworking of some of the indicators of success to understand how we will actually measure the success quantitatively. And it should be noted that there were some things that are more qualitative in nature as well that we would be looking at, that the administration would be looking at ways to maybe make it clearer what the indicator of success would be in those areas. During the meeting, we also, there were two policies that we covered. We didn't spend a lot of time on them because the changes in them were fairly minor. They were policy 1613 or 1613, disclosure and review of applicant employment history is a new policy. And it had, though it was a new policy, the edits or the choices from the Strauss-Esme template were minimal. And the same with policy 1642, earned sick leave law. And those were passed along with the suggested options to the policy committee. Now, let's see. There were several personnel actions discussed. Those are the things I think are outside of what we can bring to the fore at an open board meeting. Those are, that pretty much covers what we talked about in the meeting. If any of the folks who were present think that there are other things that should be shared or spoken about tonight, then please do speak up and bring to the fore anything you feel that I've missed that would be important to cover.
No, thank you, Board Member Baker. The only additional item we had briefly discussed was tracking the evaluations and making sure that we're on path. Was that at this meeting?
If it was mentioned, it was.
I was going to say, I think that was a different meeting.
That might have been a different meeting.
I think that was a different meeting, yeah.
I thought you were going to mention
Sorry.
the 1.2 FTE issue, but I didn't know whether that was appropriate for this,
How
this
you,
venue.
Board Member R. Baker, how you address it, I think is very appropriate.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
Great. Thank you.
I have one thing. We talked about a position. Can you talk about that? It wasn't going to be filled.
Confidential secretary position.
Yes.
I thought that I left it off because I thought that that was something that we had discussed, and it probably is more appropriate when the action is completed to bring that up.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. All right. Board Member Covell, would you like to give an update on NJSBA Directors Meeting?
Sure, thanks, President Manny. Let me just switch to my notes. So the NGSBA directors met on this last Friday night. I was the Essex County representative. All were in attendance. Some items to talk about. So NGSBA Board of Directors, we sworn in new members. There are new members that we have yet to sworn in based upon election results. Some things that we did talk about was how NGSBA has released new student learning loss reports and COVID-related student intervention on their website, which is available. They're currently looking at a new report that's going to be available in January on the psychological impact of the pandemic of students. We talked about the NGSBA workshop virtual sessions that were held this fall and feedback and results of that. There was a record number of attendance of board members from across the state of New Jersey that attended the virtual sessions. We also talked about how there was a new CUSAC bill that was introduced that last week that had already passed committee that's going to go to a vote tentatively this week by the legislature. The previous CUSAC bill to delay the CUSAC reporting was vetoed by Governor Murphy, but a new bill was introduced, and so this new bill is currently moving through. We also talked about the new cooperative purchasing agreement for health and safety standards between multiple agencies. And we also talked about how the Chapter 44 annual data sheet to be submitted is right now to be determined spring of 2021. And the BAs are going to be reaching out to schools officials. We also talked about differences of liability of school districts and protection. We also talked about the social emotional learning and supporting students and staff during COVID. There was a large, extensive conversation about supporting students and families and how best to serve them. And we also talked about currently there are executive committee positions open, and that is the deadline for folks to be able to apply for that is at the end of November. The next meeting, we will be able to swear in new members, and we will be able to have the new 2021-2022 budget data available. And that concludes my report.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Okay, great. So now we will move to the action portion. Dr. Taylor, would you like to make a motion?
Thank you to our board president, and thank you to each of our chairs for bringing your updated minutes from your meetings. Always a pleasure to attend. I present to the board for consideration Resolution 4071 through 4080.
Great. Can I have a board member to be after?
Yes, is this a moment where I can ask to sever 4080?
Yes.
I would like to make that motion then to sever 4080.
All right, can we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Board Member Baker. Mr. Roth, that was unanimous to sever 4080. Okay.
May I ask a question about that? I don't know if board member Zubieta would like to let anybody know why the sever. Perhaps it's a good point that I'm overlooking, and But if it's something that we discussed earlier and we can't discuss now, then I understand that too.
I believe I can discuss it, but Ms. Butler, if I am off topic, then maybe you can steer me in the right direction. 4080 is in regards to a self-assessment regarding HIV.
HIB.
And this was submitted to the board at 5:29 p.m. and our executive meeting began at 6 p.m. I do not feel that I had sufficient time to review it. It was a 40-page document. I do understand that it is a self-assessment and it's simply being presented for us to accept, and that there is a deadline on it. But I do feel that I've been pretty vocal about receiving documentation in a timely fashion so that we can make educated votes. And so this is my reason for asking to sever.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. So, Dr. Taylor, can we move to, can you change your motion, please?
Sure. For immediate action, we present to the board 4071 through 4079, acknowledging that 4080 has been severed.
Right. Thank you. Can we have a second? Board Member Cuttle? I'm sorry. Board Member Cuttle, did you have a question?
I'm sorry, I'm having problems with my math. No, I'm just trying to find where we're at.
Right. So right now we are just trying to make a motion so that we can discuss items 4071 through 4079.
So, I'm sorry for my apologies. So, does that include? I don't see the number for it, so I'm sorry. The MOA.
That includes approval for the MOU. Yes. Yeah.
So with the MOU in of itself, is it part of discussion or?
It's part of discussion, and then we generally move it for consent. Dr. Taylor.
Yeah. So right now, I just made a motion to move it forward for discussion. So I think, right, so once we have the second, we'll be able to discuss anything in that grouping 4071 through 9.
Okay. I will second that, please.
Okay, thank you, Board Member Cuttle. So we have a second. All in favor to move this to discussion?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Roth, I think I got everybody. Okay. So now we're at the discussion portion for 4071 to 4079. Board Member Cuttle, did you want to raise a concern?
Yes, sorry. Thank you. Yes, under the MOU, Dr. Taylor, if we're permissible to discuss and understand because it's a security document, there was some language specific, if I'm interpreting it correctly, that allowed the option for SROs and or allowed the option for alternative training for on-site. Our history of a district has been one that we have pushed back against SROs as a board and concerns from the community and the board in relation to trainings that may be perhaps not within the parameter and the best interest of where we're going from a climate and culture position for remediation as a district. So those were two concerns. And thirdly, it lists that the school personnel, but that's not filled in. and not sure if you're allowed to say who that is in lieu of Dr. Shea leaving us, but who is filling that role in this position? Thank you.
Thank you. So the board president and I, we had a meeting with our local police chiefs to discuss this document. And the only concern was that this document was put forward by the state, right, by the state AG, and that any deviation from the actual document that could be troublesome, right? It doesn't mean that everything that is written is something that we have to do. It just helps us to form the relationship that we have with our police departments. I can tell you now, if it helps to ease the board's mind, there is no budget that we have, and no decision has been made to consider bringing in SROs. I believe that the language just governs how SROs are managed if they become a part of of the relationship.
That's correct.
Yes, and secondly, I am the liaison until that position is brought forward for the board to consider. Board member E. Baker.
Thank you. So it's my understanding that the references to SRO are, as you've noted, Dr. Taylor, part of the state required template, but I want to avoid any alarm in the community or kind of misperception, because our board policy clearly and unequivocally does not permit the use of armed security or SROs in our schools. So nothing, even if the state is proffering this template and requiring districts to adopt it, this board has not approved the use of SROs. And in fact, we've developed a very specific policy regarding security in our schools, which provides only for unarmed civilian security staff, either directly employed by the district or contracted through a public procurement. So I want to be clear on that. What I didn't see, and I don't know if this was, I missed this in the committee report, is could you identify any of the changes to this MOU? We've been very careful and pushed back regarding use of, I believe, like electronic surveillance, and we went through an incredible advocacy process to tweak that language. But is there anything substantive in this MOU compared to prior years? I think that would help.
No, we actually did a document for document comparison, the previous document to this one, because there was concern from just in general that we make sure that things aren't slipped in, right? And so we did do a line by line analysis, and there was just one small change. I think it was just in the language around the principal, but we can give the board that specific difference, but it wasn't anything, as you stated, substantive.
And did we maintain the one area where we received permission to customize it previously, which I believe was, President Maney can correct me or expand, I believe it was with respect to electronic surveillance and presence of or visits by law enforcement to our schools. I think we had narrowed some language off of the state model and had to receive approvals to do that.
No, we made no changes from this document from the template received from the state office. All we did was review it in comparison to the previous document that we utilized. To our board president.
Last year, we did not go through any special approval process, Elizabeth.
So it was 2 years ago. And so are you saying that we lost the prior revisions that we made? I mean, Ms. Butler, I believe, worked on them with us.
Yes, I had worked on them, I believe, and I don't have the final in front of me, but I believe that language remained.
Well, I need to know before I vote. So either, so if if other matters are being severed, then I would move to sever this resolution as well. I think it's an important, we had addressed specific concerns, and I would just like to know if they've been maintained. I'm not intending to vote for something, where we inadvertently compromise civil liberties protections that we thought were important.
Right. I think what Dr. Taylor did was take the previous
last year's agreement
and did a word by word, a line by line analysis.
So I appreciate that, but I do not personally believe that it's clear what the delineation is from last year to this year, especially since there is items within the document itself, which is a lengthy document, which was sent late this afternoon, that has not responsibility, a specific person added into that. But also in addition to that, again, my concern continues to be, as I've stated before on this issue, that I understand this is a state requirement and language that is kind of pro forma, but at the same time, how are we, with the capabilities that we have, inserting language that applies to us with respect to what we're allowed to do? But again, I personally feel like it's a very generalized document as is, and previously, since my tenure on the board, we have discussed this in a more nuanced way. But that's just my personal opinion.
So I'd like to make a motion to sever the approval of this MOA from the broader agenda.
I second.
Well, why not a motion to table if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I guess I'd like, one question would be, is this required to be approved this month? Or can it be carried over to December?
I'm looking in my files right now to answer a couple of those questions. So if you would like to sever it, just to give me a little more time to look, and I would be able to probably answer some of those questions. So Blue,
My second.
I didn't hear a second, but if you would like to do that, then I'll continue to work over here to
I
look.
believe Board Member Wright seconded it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I seconded it 2 times. Twice.
A second.
Thank you, Ms. Wright.
You're welcome.
I just I guess I have a question. Well, not a question, a comment and an answer. Comment being that we did get this November 4th. So I just wanted to make that clear. And then also in the email where we got it November 4th, it does say that the submission deadline is November 20th.
That was the last piece that I was looking for, Board Member Joshua. Give me just 2 seconds here. I'm trying to make sure I can find that one piece that was different for the board.
Thank you, Board Member Joshua. That is duly noted. Also noted that the final copy was uploaded this afternoon. So I just making a point of order about that.
Yeah, I believe what was uploaded today was just, hold on 1 second here. Mirrors what was sent okay. And again, to our board president, if you want to move forward the action on the other items, again, 4071, I believe. Pulling up my other screen here. 4071 through 4072. 4077 and also 4079, and acknowledging that 4078 and 4080 are both separate at this time. We could move those and then shift to the other conversation.
Sure, I was just trying to find the data changes myself. Okay. All right, so we will close the discussion for 4071 through 4077 and 4079. Mr. Roth, can you call the roll, please?
Okay, roll call for resolutions 4071 through 4077 and 4079. Board Member Elizabeth Baker.
So I'm voting yes, but I'm recusing myself from the resolution regarding the Italian settlement agreement and any other matters within the various resolutions regarding Italian or the food and lunch monitor vendor.
Recusals noted. Board Member Robin Baker.
Yes.
Board Member Shannon Cuttle.
Yes.
Board Member Thayer Joshua.
Yes.
Board Member Anne Marie Manny.
Yes.
Board Member Anthony Mazzocchi.
Yes, noting any standing recusals, please.
Noted. Board Member Erin Siders.
Yes.
Board Member Johanna Wright.
Yes.
Board Member Kamal Zubieta.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 9-0.
Thank you, Mr. Roth. Okay, so Dr. Taylor, going back to 4078, which is the approval of the memorandum of understanding with the police.
Yes, I went back through my records and through my records of communication and also our meeting records. And it looks like the first concern that was there was that there was a disagreement that from our police department partners around changes of a former document, and that it didn't have all the updates and all the appendices that are a part of this document. And we requested that our county office send us again, resubmit to us the actual template from the AG's office, and we took that instrument and forwarded it directly to our police partners. No changes were made. Recalling, I was trying to pull up a previous conversation, an internal one where we did a deep review, literally sheet by sheet, of the document to the previous document, and there was one small change regarding something around our principles. I can't find that right now. I just tried to reach out to some of our office folks, but it's pretty late now, and they're not available. And yes, I agree that the document was pushed out, and I believe that the due date for the state statutory requirement is November the 20th. I'm not sure what wiggle room there is there. I would ask our board solicitor for advice on that. But again, the document is as it was designed and received from the AG State's office, and also signed by our local police department chiefs.
So a quick question, if I may. It was compared to, because I did find a note in my history that talked about, I think this was concerning specifically live streaming.
Yes,
And
page
Yes,
46 of
and
the document. Yep.
I am looking on at I'm going back through emails from February of 2019.
19, yeah. So it
February.
was in the 2019 version
Yeah, it
of
was
the.
early 2019. And I believe the question was that we wanted to make sure that the document addresses the board's concerns in protecting civil liberties, because we could be specific about when, where, and who will have access to the live streaming. And then we had the specific names that were attached for each municipality and what their position was.
Right.
I believe that's where.
Right, and then I
We
believe
had
there
taken
was
care.
there was further follow-up as I'm going through that email that we don't have live streaming in our district. We have where we do have recording devices as people who have visited our buildings can see the cameras, but there is no live streaming. There's no, that's not over an internet, that's stored in a closet, and then when there's an issue, we access that, I believe is what the resolution of that concern was.
Which was not my question, but I appreciate it.
No, that I was just getting back to Board Member Baker's concern.
And also, just for everyone's edification, we still do have for this current school year a list of those designees as well for surveillance video cameras, because as our board president said, you know, again, not talking, I hate talking about security in public, but we still do have well, I won't say still, we do have a list of the 10 names that have access. And I believe that was a part of what the board members received, dated, this document is dated 10/7.
Board Member Cudlow?
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. I think for me personally, only speaking, the additional concern outside of that, which was a separate discussion in meeting, and I appreciate that, in relation to this, is their current MOU that we're looking at, which I know is required by the state, but it also doesn't mention restorative justice. And I had hoped at some point, especially this year, we would have incorporated our restorative justice practices in negotiation between our MOU partners at this point, especially since we've created the partnership for restorative justice with both police departments. But to the best of my understanding, in going over this, it does not state that. It'd be wonderful if it did, in addition to other best practices.
Thank you for that. I know that, again, our code of conduct is called the Code of Conduct and Restorative Practices, et cetera. And I agree that is our, that's the way that we are moving as a district, and it's our commitment to our community, and it's a shared tenet that we have. I would ask that, you know, we can value that, but I just would not want us to be out of compliance when it comes to a state requirement. We can, the board president and I met with our police chiefs, and I believe I can re-engage them to reiterate that and reiterate our commitment to that. I think it's been pretty obvious, even when we held our joint meeting with the Columbia High School families last year with the police, and we're able to speak about safety and our commitment to safety as well as restorative practices. Again, totally acknowledging that, and you know, totally committed to that. And again, I just would not want our district to be viewed as out of compliance with the state requirement.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. I understand that. From my understanding is from NGSBA that we are not precluded to be able to add things like restorative justice and local measures in addition to the minimum mandated state requirements. And so when I bring that up, it's only because I think it would be beneficial if we added that to these MOUs for a general understanding across the board for future.
Right.
100%. And I think that both our solicitor is noting that. And I know we'll definitely note that moving forward. I see Board Member E. Baker's hand also up.
I just want to point out that this is probably an area where we could move policy advocacy with NJSBA through the policy manual. If this is within the purview of the governor's office and the governor's appointed attorney general, they could actually make it much easier for school districts so that we don't have to negotiate it and actually include restorative practices and restorative justice within the MOU and guide local school districts. So I don't think it precludes us from doing it at the local level, provided that we get agreement and we also get the approval that there are no issues. But from a policy standpoint, this would seem to be a very ripe area to push, a governor who is committed to these issues, to actually change the model of the agreement. I understand, and going back through the emails that, and I appreciate the President Maney and Board Member Robin Baker found the emails from last year that our original civil liberties concerns have been incorporated in the new state template. But this would seem to be the next level of the advocacy work that we could do, so that not every district has to reinvent the wheel and have this individual negotiation, which may or may not be fruitful if the state actually changed the model.
I think that's something that this board is committed to doing, and we can start that work as soon as possible. Board Member Joshua?
Yeah, two quick things. I just want to, I think you just said it, Board Member E. Baker, but the concerns that you had about this not being the document that the previous boards had authored seems to have been put away, that this is in fact what, in the language, as a newer board member, we don't have, the full discussion of what had been added. So we were just presented this information, this document as a state requirement, you have to do it. So it was read as such without the context that some of the longer term board members have. So thank you for that. And I guess the other thing is, it doesn't sound like we are in a position to make any changes to this document this evening, which is fine with me. And I guess I'm just, hearing suggestions about making changes to something we've had for 2 weeks seems to be, I don't think this is the appropriate time for it. I prefer we either do that in exec or whether it's through emails, instead of, seconds before the vote. So thanks.
But I just want to respond, and this is if we had an annual agenda and we knew when it was coming up, we should be actually bringing these concerns before you go to before the board president. If the board president's now part of the negotiation, that's a positive development, but before the district is in negotiation with the local law enforcement, right? So that we know what the state model is and we can get concerns before they go to the negotiating table, and then we come back and say, no, do over. Just, if we knew it was coming up and it was calendared, it could be, put before one committee in particular. We could get input before they go negotiate it. So again, I think it goes to the agenda planning.
Right. So this was, I do believe, a meeting with the police departments and the board, a board representative and the school district has always been part of the MOU that we have not, at least in my experience, necessarily followed through on with all parties present. So this was my first time meeting in such a setting. So we can only improve it, improve our relationships so that it supports all of our children in the district when the police are brought into the building. Mr. Board Member Cottle?
So President Manny, would it be beneficial to us to, in the future, as a board, adopt a resolution again strengthening our assertion against SRO officers, but informing a social emotional culture and best practices in regards to our students? The question.
Yeah, I guess I mean, I guess, yeah, we can definitely consider that. I just, you know, when it is embedded in our policy, I'm not 100% sure, you know, how that moves us forward, except for amplifying it, which we can definitely consider how to do that best.
Well, just for clarification, what Board Member Cuddle was talking about, are you talking about putting something that would basically require us to have the restorative practices within this MOU? Because I'm just
No.
wondering, I don't want to put us in
I
a
read the
position
resolution
where,
just to reaffirm our position
okay,
as a board and our commitment around this area in general.
Okay.
And that resolution would not be policy binding, but be an artifact that would affirm our commitment and our stance as a board.
Okay. I was just, because I was a little confused about its impact on policy, because what I could see us possibly heading towards was a place where we put something that we're obligated to and then can't follow through on it, and then we have a policy crisis, constitutional crisis within our district.
Board Member Zubieta?
I have a question about this MOU. Is it saying we must have an SRO, or is it saying you have the right to have an SRO? The latter?
It kind of governs the relationship if you so choose, if a district so choose to go that way.
If you have it, this is what you have to do.
Right.
Okay.
You don't have to have it.
But our policy
And this was
prohibits
something
it.
that was specifically addressed by the policy committee. I think it was 2 years ago, Board Member E. Baker. We specifically addressed this issue and made it clear the SROs would not be in the building.
So if we do not have an SRO, we would not be breaking the law. We would still be in compliance with the law. We would just say, for our district, we're not down with SROs, but we recognize that other people are, and if they are, they have to follow these rules.
Right.
Yes. So, Member Zubieta, there is no specific New Jersey law, please correct me, that requires SROs. That's for the individual district mandate, but available under state law.
Thanks all.
Right. Okay, so I think we have finished discussion on 4078. Mr. Roth, can you poll the board for resolution 4078?
Okay, roll call for 4078, and I'm going in reverse order to mix things up a bit. Board Member Kamal Zubieta.
Yes.
Board Member Johanna Wright.
You're still on mute.
Oops. Abstain. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Vote.
Was that a yes?
Board Member Wright, could you make your comment again?
I said I abstained.
Abstain. Okay, thank you.
Did you hear me?
Board Member
I'm sorry.
Erin Siders.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay. Board Member Anthony Mazzocchi.
Yes.
Board Member Anne Marie Manning.
Yes.
Board Member Thayer Joshua.
Yes.
Board Member Shannon Cuttle.
Yes. Hold on.
Board Member Robin Baker.
Yes.
Board Member Elizabeth Baker.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 8 yeses and 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. Now, Dr. Taylor, I think you have to make a motion to move 4080 because we had severed it at the beginning.
Thank you. Presenting to the board for consideration, Resolution 4080.
Great. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Joshua. All right, open for discussion. So, Dr. Taylor, would you, part of this self-assessment, also some of the data was also discussed during the SSDS. So if you want to just give a summary to the community about what we're actually accepting in this resolution.
Sure. Thank you. So our administrators, meaning our school leaders, as well as our anti-bullying specialists, many times these are guidance counselors or assistant principals in our schools. They do a self-assessment. They answer questions based on a state template, and it centers around the impact and effectiveness of our HIB program in our schools, and it also centers on the professional development received at the school level and at the district level. It's statutorily mandated that we have to do a self-assessment annually. Normally, the board, from my past experiences, receive a summation of this information. However, as we demonstrated during our presentation, we're trying to be as transparent as possible, and we provided the board with the full self-assessments with all the answers to every question presented. And again, the board accepting this, the board is voting to accept this. That's the action that is taking place. From my understanding, the board is not moving forward that they agree with the self-assessment, because
It's not endorsing or approving it, it's accepting it.
Thank you, and that's thank you to our solicitor for that. I was a loss for words there. I'm pretty sure that's the limitation of this vote statutorily.
Great. And I also believe this, the old report that was just a summary of the indicators was less informative than what you have shared with the board, and I hope you will consider posting that on the website as well. Board Member Mazzocchi?
Yeah, I want to quickly say that I completely understand the sentiment that even though, you know, the board exists to receive a few things, and just to have noted that we received it should not make it, for lack of a better term, okay to submit it last minute, because even though we want to just receive it, many of us would like to thoroughly review it as well. So I understand Board Member Zubieda's concern. I share it. I really do. And I think that in a broader sense, you know, giving things time and space, you usually can't go wrong with that.
I agree and definitely accept and acknowledge that. And one small correction as well, that the ABS is also includes social workers. I know we're always speaking about and really focused in on mental health, that is a part of our HIB processes in many cases.
Yeah. And again, both Board Member Mazaki and Board Member Zubieta, echoing the refrain of getting into an annual calendar where, we can almost say in January what every agenda is going to be, so that we are all aware of what's coming up, as well as just keeping track that nothing falls through the cracks. Okay. Board Member E. Baker?
So I share the concerns about when we received it in the packet. I do appreciate the level, as I indicated in a previous comment to Dr. Taylor, the level of detail that we have in this view of the report rather than just the overall compilation. We do, as part of the merit goal process, we've mapped out considerable climate and culture work. And so I think, going forward, it's critical that the board have this information earlier, and, in terms of production and the administration driving towards that, and if the individual schools are responsible for getting that data, then everyone has to understand their part and row in the same direction. But I think more importantly, coming out of tonight, I think we'd really like to hear, more about the plans and the feedback and the discussions that are going into those school-based climate and culture plans based on this data. Because as I indicated to you, I was pretty shocked at some of the school-based answers, and I'd really like to understand prior, from you to the board. What was beneath some of that? Is it just folks didn't really understand, or the people who were answering the questions weren't the same people who were in the meetings last year? It could be any number of things, but, and is there any, accuracy or validity to self-assessment saying that their websites don't comply? Well, then why is that? Right? And like, who's, where at the building level is that, where is that housed for addressing it? So I appreciate the candor in the self-assessment and the detail, but I'd actually, like to know, what's going to come of it. And I know that's, the goal work, but I'd also hope that we could get some reports in the interim.
Thank you for that. And you're 100% correct that part of us sharing more is to be able to move forward with the information that we have as a shared learning community, me, the board, and the SLT and myself, and definitely are going to be utilizing that. And I think that what you spoke about is some of the nuance on this, right? That we're not static, that personnel changes, assignments change. The person who may have been assigned to something in the first part of the year may not have been, or, the person simply might have unbelievably forgotten that they took part in a training, which is probably the most unbelievable answer that we could receive. But we are going to dig deep into this because we think that there's a lot of foundation to be laid. And as we demonstrated, I think in our SSDS meeting and also with the comments from our solicitor, a lot of work has been done in the last few years around this.
Great, thank you, Dr. Taylor. Is there any more discussion on 4080? Okay, we will close discussion, and Mr. Roth, can you call the roll, please?
Okay, roll call for 4080. Board Member Elizabeth Baker.
Yes.
Board Member Robin Baker.
Yes.
Board Member Shannon Cuttle.
Yes.
Board Member Thayer Joshua.
Yes.
Board Member Anne Marie Manny.
Yes.
Board Member Anthony Mazaki.
Yes.
Board Member Erin Siders.
Yes.
Board Member Johanna Wright.
Yes.
Board Member Kamal Zubieta.
No.
Okay, motion carries 8-1.
Great, thank you. So now, that's all the resolutions, right? We didn't miss, okay, thank you, Mr. Roth. So now we're at the time for the second public speaks. Mr. Bonds, have any emails come in or any WebEx questions that you see, Dr. Taylor?
Yes, give me 1 second.
Okay.
I am awaiting Mr. Bond's email with bated breath.
Okay.
Nothing yet. Still nothing yet, Mr. Bonds. Refreshing. Oh, there it is. It appears that we have one public speaks. It is from Matthew Garnage, Garnage. My apologies if I mispronounced your last name. In Dr. Taylor's update earlier tonight about the filter upgrades taking place in school district buildings, he mentioned work that is actively going on in classrooms throughout the district. The portable classrooms at several elementary sites have a unique ventilation system that is used for both heating and cooling. I believe ventilation system installed in each elementary portable classroom is a Halcyon Fujitsu wall-mounted mini split system, sometimes referred to as a Duchess unit. The information shared publicly about installing MERV filters at last month's BOE meeting on October 19th refers to the type of ventilation systems that are installed in main building classrooms. I have not yet heard any reference to the type of ventilation systems installed in elementary portable classrooms across the district. These Halcyon Fujitsu wall-mounted mini split systems only circulate indoor air. There is no mechanism for drawing in fresh air. To my knowledge, most elementary portable classrooms do not have window air conditioning units that could be utilized to bring outdoor air into the classroom. There appears to be at least one exception at Marshall with a window AC unit installed. I contacted a manufacturer's representatives for the Halcyon Fujitsu wall-mounted mini split system through their website on October 20th, 2020 to ask about adding MERV filtration to their units, and the representation replied the following via email: wall-mounted units cannot accept MERV-rated filters. Can you, on the plan for fresh air circulation exchange and filtration purification for the portable classrooms at elementary sites throughout the school district? So I think that the best response for that, and again, thank you for that thoughtful email, is that we will add that to our discussions with our vendor around these, our third-party vendor around these specific ventilation questions around the portables. And Mr. Roth will note that and we'll follow up with that and include that information in our future communications. To our board president and board members, that concludes Public Speaks.
Great, thank you. So now I have one piece of new business, and there might be others, but the board will undertake a mid-year superintendent evaluation that will be scheduled in the next couple weeks and delivered to Dr. Taylor in closed session in December. Notice those meetings as soon as the board calendars can line up. And that is a change to the way we've previously done it, where we've waited until January, February with new board members, and just the lack of robust conversation is limited when you have brand new members join. Are there any other new business? Board Member Cutler?
Thank you, President Manny. I just want to acknowledge and thank you for acknowledging Transgender Awareness Week, and also this coming end of Transgender Awareness Week with the Transgender Day of Remembrance, and highlighting CHS Spectrum Club and our community in recognizing and supporting our transgender and non-binary community members. So thank you for that. It's much appreciated. And I also wanted to highlight the many students in the community that are raising awareness for this week of action in solidarity, be it virtual still, because we are in the pandemic, and encourage folks to be able to support student-led efforts to raise awareness around Transgender Awareness Week. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all right. So I would like to move the following. The Board of Education will meet in closed session on Monday, December 14th at 6:30 via this online video conference platform to discuss personnel, legal issues, negotiations, and other matters to be announced at a later date. Immediately following the closed session, the Board of Education will meet in public session at 7:30 using the online video conference platform. Action will be taken. The Board of Education will also meet in public session at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, January 6th, using the online video conference platform. Action will also be taken. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any concerns? Discussion? All right, all in favor? I think you've got everybody, Mr. Roth. All right, and now I will move that we adjourn this meeting at 11:17. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second. All right, all in favor? All right. Great. Thank you all. See you. Be safe. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Stay safe. Take care now.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.